The life of a ninja beginning in the hidden mist village. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 351 Space. At this moment, a series of dense footsteps and shouts came from the forest not far away. Mizukage-sama, Mizukage-sama. Afei rushed to the unconscious boy and put his hand on him. Yakura, Yakura. Seeing this scene, the three-tailed Isabuaya anxiously called out his Jinkriki's name in his heart, but the lively boy in the past did not respond at all. Yakura was severely injured by Uchiha Itachi's Amaterasu fire and fainted temporarily. Helplessly, it had to let its chakra leak out of the sealed space and take over the control of Yakura's body. When it was driving the power of its right eye and preparing to absorb the green-haired boy into the different space of the Manjaki Sharingan, Afei suddenly saw the other party turn his head, staring at him and questioning, "Who are you?" Three-tailed. Seeing the inhuman vertical pupil in the eye, Afei immediately realized that it was the tailed beast in the Jinkriki's body that was controlling the body. But even so, he still did not give up the plan to suck Yakura into the different space. In just a moment, a vortex of emptiness seemed to suddenly open in front of his mask. Before the three-tailed beast could fully recover, it was sucked in and came to a dark and strange space. After completing his mission, Afei slowly stood up and sneered, "It doesn't matter who I am. What's important is that you are my captives now." After discovering that the footsteps and shouts were getting closer and closer, he once again activated his Manjaki Sharingan, opened a vortex of emptiness, and sucked himself in. The ability of each pair of Sharingan is the same, but the Manjaki Sharingan that is sublimated on this basis is different. That is the forbidden eye of their Uchiha family. In addition to the leap forward improvement of the pupil power, the Manjaki Sharingan will also derive various special abilities depending on the holder. The characteristics of Afei's eye can be summarized in one word, that is space. There is a small different space in his eye. After years of dormancy and practice, he finally became proficient in using the ability of that eye. Its main functions are absorption and de-illusion. He can use that eye to absorb people or objects into his own small space, or hide his body in the space, so as to achieve the purpose of de-illusioning his body in the real world, and avoid all harm. In the battle for the lineage year, when he first awakened the Manjaki Sharingan, he subconsciously used the ability of de-illusion, which allowed him to ignore the attacks of many Miss Ninjas and kill them all. This shows how strong it is. The other absorption ability, although it looks ordinary, is also extremely terrifying. It is not just a storage room that can absorb things, but also a cage with the walls of space as fences. Once a living thing is sucked into it, there is almost no possibility of escape. In addition, it is desolate inside, without even a drop of water. Once the opponent is sucked into it, even if he does not take action, the opponent will be trapped to death in it. You know, without food, a person can live for nearly half a month, but without water, a person can only live for 3 days. With this ability alone, he can almost handle everyone. Not long after, a group of ninjas wearing grey light armor and ripple-marked masks arrived at the battlefield in front of Yakura. The ground was in a mess, with corpses all over the ground. "Isn't that Biwajuzo?" Someone immediately noticed the man nailed to the tree trunk by the broken sword. One of them carefully sniffed his breath, then turned back and said to everyone, "He's dead." Then, a leader like Miss Ninja told everyone, "Hurry up and look for Mizukage-sama." One of them waved his hand nonchalantly and said, "Boss, don't be so nervous, right? The fourth Hokage is a perfect Jinkriki, and there are few enemies in the entire ninja world. He will be fine." As he said that, he glanced at the man nailed to the tree trunk again, and continued, "Even the former 7 ninja swordsmen died here, so there is no way the fourth Hokage will be fine." Everyone in the Mist Village knew how powerful the 7 ninja swordsmen were. But even such a powerful ninja swordsman died here, without even a chance to escape. The strength of the fourth Hokage can be seen. The fourth Hokage is our Mizukage. No matter how strong he is, or whether he is dangerous, we must do our duty to protect him. Don't waste time here with me, hurry up and find the fourth Hokage's trace. The leading Mist Ninja shouted loudly with righteous words. The crowd had no choice but to search the battlefield, trying to find traces left by the fourth generation. In the different space of the kaleidoscope, Isabu led Yagura's body and slowly stood up. It carefully looked around and found that this was a dim small different space. Time and space teleportation? It was secretly surprised. Earlier, it clearly noticed the fluctuation of time and space, not an illusion, so it was sure that it was teleported to another space. However, it was the first time it saw the application of advanced time and space that could teleport itself so easily. It was really incredible. Then, not far away from it, the void vortex appeared again in the dim different space, and Arfei, dressed in black and wearing an orange one-eyed mask, slowly appeared. "Send me out of here. I promise to forgive your rudeness, stranger." Staring at the one-eyed mask, Isabu said with a hint of threat. "Forgive me." Arfei sneered and sarcastically said, "In my eyes, you are nothing but a lowly beast. Why should you forgive me?" Hearing this, an undisguised strong killing intent immediately burst out from Isabu. "You will definitely regret angering me, stranger," it said with gritted teeth. Although the nine-tailed beasts have beast-shaped bodies, their wisdom is no different from that of ordinary people. And because they were created by the Six Paths Sage himself, they feel superior to others, so they are very taboo about others comparing them with ordinary beasts. Now, this damn guy not only called it lowly, but also called it a beast. No matter what, it can't stand it. Originally, it was worried that, after killing the other party, it would be trapped to death in this different space. Now, it can't care about anything. It just wants to tear this hateful guy in front of it into pieces, vent its anger, and then slowly think about how to leave here. Then, Arfei saw red chakra pouring out of Yagura's body, and soon a layer of black and red chakra covered his body. The green-haired boy turned into a black and red giant turtle in the blink of an eye. Even if you have more chakra, you are just a beast with slightly greater power. Arfei shook his head, and then slowly took off his mask. A pair of red eyes with black Magatama marks appeared in front of Isabu. "You are from the Uchiha clan." Isabu screamed, and immediately retreated, and spit out a puff of white mist from his mouth. Chapter 352, Trapped Beast, Part 1. As one of the nine-tailed beasts, Isabu is very clear that the Uchiha clan's Sharingan can control them with illusions. Therefore, it is very afraid of the pair of red eyes. The illusion of the Sharingan is transmitted through vision, so that the opponent is it. When fighting with the Sharingan, it is difficult for the other party not to connect with the Sharingan's line of sight, which is why the Sharingan illusion is difficult to prevent. But no matter how tricky the Sharingan illusion is, it is still an illusion. As long as a third party intervenes, it can be easily solved. Originally, Jinkriki, a man and beast in one, is both one person and two people, who can help each other to remove the illusion. He is not afraid of the Sharingan at all. But now Yagura is seriously injured and unconscious, and only his consciousness dominates his body. If he is accidentally hit by an illusion, Yagura can't save him at all. Therefore, he has to treat the pair of red eyes with caution. Try to avoid the possibility of being hit by an illusion. Soon, the thick fog completely enveloped the area of dozens of meters, and the sight of the pair of red eyes was completely blocked on the other side. It could only barely see a vague figure standing in the fog not far away. At the same time, seeing that the surroundings were shrouded in fog, Arfei did not say much, and quickly formed a set of hand seals, and then took a deep breath, and puffed up his chest. Fire style, explosive wind dance. He gathered chakra into his mouth and right eye, spitting out a red fire snake, and at the same time, he drove the spatial ability of his right eye to create a huge, outward radiating vortex of the void. Then, the red fire snake was twisted by the vortex of the void, and merged with it, turning into a huge fire tornado that radiated outward. In an instant, the fire tornado, twisted by the power of space, immediately completely enveloped the area of nearly 100 meters in front of Arfei. The fire tornado blessed with the power of space also increased its lethality exponentially. Wherever the tornado passed, the fog disappeared, and it was evaporated by the scorching high temperature, and completely turned into nothingness. On the other side, Isabu had never expected that the opponent's fire escape would be so powerful. Before it could react, the opponent's fire tornado had already burned the surrounding fog. How is it possible? It was shocked. It was the first time it encountered such a powerful fire escape ninjutsu. You know, the fog it just created was not ordinary water fog. Because the mist hidden art of the Hidden Mist Village was inspired by its water fog, and this was created by someone. Ordinary fire escape can't do anything to such special fog. And this guy from Uchiha actually evaporated it by himself, which is really unbelievable. But although it was surprised, it didn't want to experience the taste of being roasted. Because after the fire tornado evaporated the fog, it was rolling towards it with heat waves. Its attack range covered a radius of dozens of meters, leaving it no possibility of escape. Then, Isabu mobilized his chakra and stomped his foot hard. Immediately, a huge water curtain surged around it, completely surrounding its black and red figure. The fire tornado rushed up immediately. There was a hissing sound, and a white mist rose from the water curtain, which became thinner in an instant. Realizing that the water curtain might not be able to withstand it, Isabu snorted coldly and increased the output of chakra again. Then, the water curtain that was about to break suddenly swelled again, firmly holding the fire tornado outside. A lot of chakra. Seeing this, Afei immediately stopped the continuation of the technique. Although his body had an extraordinary amount of chakra after special transformation, it was still not enough to compare with monsters like the tailed beasts. Continuing to consume it would only be a waste of his chakra, which was meaningless. Moreover, he did not intend to take down the three tails with just this fire style. He had other plans. Then, after he created a shadow clone, the two of them split into two sides and attacked the water curtain. After noticing that the other party had stopped the fire style, Isabu also removed his water curtain barrier. At this moment, the guy in black clothes with a pair of Sharingan rushed over quickly while the water curtain was falling. What? Isabu was shocked and immediately gathered chakra into his mouth. Water style, iron cannon bomb. After transforming the chakra into the nature of water, it did not hesitate to spit out a compressed water bomb at the figure that rushed in. The water bomb swelled in the wind and immediately became the size of a millstone, hitting the Uchiha ninja without any fancy moves. However, before it could be happy, it saw that the guy was like a bubble and shattered under its high pressure water bomb with a bang. Clone. It shouted in a lost voice. At the same time, there was a whirring sound above its head. It looked up and saw that guy was holding a kunai and falling rapidly over its head. It had no time to dodge, so it instinctively crossed its two black and red front paws over its head, ready to block the blow from the sky. Originally, among the nine-tailed beasts, it was known for its defensive power. Although it has not completely transformed into a tailed beast, it is protected by a materialized chakra coat, and will definitely not be afraid of a head-on confrontation with an ordinary person. Ding. Afei's kunai slashed on the black and red claws of Isabu, making a crisp collision sound. Then, he mocked again. You should go to bed, you lowly beast. Hearing this, Isabu's mood, which had finally calmed down, was once again boiling. It suddenly lifted its two black and red claws, and immediately lifted the man who was pressing on its head, and shouted loudly, I must tear you apart today. But because of the other party's Sharingan, it did not dare to look directly at the other party, but gathered chakra in its mouth, transformed the nature of water, and sprayed out a mouthful of thick fog again. It did not see that when it lifted up Afei's mouth hung a smug smile, and his left eye gradually turned into a dead gray. At the same time, Izo, who was once again hidden in the fog, saw the fire tornado reappear, and once again evaporated its fog with an unstoppable attitude, and rolled towards it. Without the slightest hesitation, it stomped its foot again, and a blue water curtain barrier rose from the ground, protecting it firmly inside. Hiss. Seeing that the water curtain was evaporated by the high temperature and became thinner and thinner, it once again increased the chakra output in the water curtain with a hint of doubt. Then, the man on the opposite side saw the opportunity to terminate the technique. Isabu also removed the water curtain barrier, and at this time, the man launched a surprise attack on it. It spit out another iron cannonball without hesitation, and immediately hit the opponent, but it was not the real one at all, but just the opponent's clone. Then, the opponent's real body fell from the sky, and launched a surprise attack on it again. Isabu instinctively raised his two front paws to defend himself, but a huge wave of waves was rising in his heart. Why is it the same as before? It shouted in confusion. No wonder it always felt that something was wrong. It turned out that it repeated the process of the two people's fight just now. Chapter 353, Trapped Beast, Part 2. Ding. The masked man's Kunai slashed his arms again. But this time, the suspicious Isabu didn't open it like before, but rolled on the ground and rolled far to the side. It hoped to get rid of the strange cycle just now in this way. After seeing the pair of red eyes looking at it again, it retreated while spewing white mist, once again shrouding itself in the fog. It must always be on guard against the illusion of the Sharingan. However, at this time, the guy wearing a mask, whether intentionally or unintentionally, once again released the same fire escape ninjutsu. Seeing the fire tornado rolling in, Isabu didn't plan to use the water curtain to resist it this time. It took a deep breath and then gathered chakra in its mouth. Water escape water formation column. It opened its mouth and sprayed a huge high pressure water column, which immediately rolled towards the fire tornado. Hiss. With the sound of the water column being vaporized and evaporated, the fire tornado was completely blocked. The man on the other side seemed to realize that the spell was ineffective and once again cancelled the spell and rushed forward quickly. Isabu used Iron Cannonball to attack the opponent, but he dodged all of them and once again stuck to him. Ding. The kunai fell on his front paws again, and the scene just now reappeared. Why? Isabu was shocked. Although such repeated scenes did not cause any harm to him, he was also very frightened to be trapped in such a strange reincarnation. Then, after quickly getting rid of the opponent's close entanglement, he once again spit out a thick fog to prevent the Sharingan illusion. In the small space of the main Gekio, Afei looked at the black and red chakra coat not far away and the motionless Three Tails Jinchuriki and showed a contemptuous smile. Ignorant fool. The Three Tails had been controlled by him with illusion. However, that was not an ordinary Sharingan illusion. It was a forbidden technique that cost one eye permanent blindness, Izanami. Now, he is fully capable of killing the Three-tailed Jinchuriki, but he has no need to do so. Because the guy in front of him is not only the Three-tailed Jinchuriki, but also the fourth Mizukage of the Hidden Mist Village. The other party's identity has a very high value of utilization. If he is captured alive and controlled by illusion, he can replace him and use the other party's identity to exercise the power of Mizukage. By then, the entire Hidden Mist Village will fall into his hands. In this way, he can not only avenge Lin, but also wait for an opportunity to explore the whereabouts of the other tailed beast in the Hidden Mist Village and take the opportunity to cause trouble inside the Hidden Mist Village, weaken the power of the Hidden Mist Village, and prepare for his future plans in advance. It can be said that capturing the Three-tailed Jinchuriki alive is more valuable to him than killing him directly. And because the Jinchuriki is a human-beast relationship, they can help each other to remove illusions. Under normal circumstances, it is impossible to control them with illusions. But now that the Jinchuriki's ego consciousness is seriously injured and unconscious, there is only one tailed beast consciousness left to preside over the overall situation, and he has the opportunity to divide and conquer. Once the Jinchuriki's ego and tailed beast consciousness were controlled by his illusion, the so-called Jinchuriki's argument of ignoring illusions would be just a joke. Unfortunately, this tailed beast was more cautious and used fog to block his vision right from the start. He was also unwilling to get close to him, which made his Sharingan illusion completely useless. Helplessly, he had to use the Uchiha family's forbidden illusion Izanami to greet the other party. This is the ultimate illusion that can only be activated at the cost of blinding one Sharingan, and it is also the result of his practice during this period of dormancy. He learned it from the clan ancestral hall of the Uchiha clan, and his left eye, because of the use of this forbidden technique, turned into a dead gray. It was also thanks to the fact that he had harvested countless Sharingan trophies after helping Uchiha Itachi slaughter the Uchiha clan that he could sacrifice his left eye without hesitation and activate this forbidden technique. Because the Sharingan in his left eye socket was not his original one, but a spare one that he transplanted from the Sharingan inventory. As for his original left eye, he gave it to his former good friend, Hatake Kakashi, as a gift during the battle at Kanabi Bridge. Otherwise, he would not have sacrificed his left eye to control the Three Tails Jinchuriki. He would not feel bad, because it was not his own, and he had many spare eyes like this. As for Izanami, it was an illusion that was activated by physical contact, not a visual illusion. Therefore, it was meaningless for the Three Tails to try to cover his sight. And he activated this illusion during the first surprise contact from the sky. Then, a fairy walked towards the Jinchuriki who stood still, shed his black and red chakra, and turned into a green-haired boy again. Standing next to Yagura, he pried open his eyelids and said, "Just in case, it's safer to use the Sharingan illusion to cover Izanami." Then, relying on the power of the Sharingan, through Yagura's eyes, Afeni's consciousness easily reached the deepest sealed space in Yagura's body. Looking at the turtle-shaped giant locked by the lightning chain, he subconsciously said, "Is this the three-tailed beast?" He and the three-tailed beast have a deep connection, because Lin died for the three-tailed beast. However, he knew that the other party existed, but he had never seen it. This was also their first formal meeting. Then, he drove the power of his eyes, and looked at the single eye of the three-tailed beast. Sharingan illusion at the same time, the three-tailed beast, which was still reincarnated in the illusion world, because of the illusion of Izanami, suddenly found that there was a blood-red moon in the sky, and there were 3 black Magatama slowly rotating in the blood-red moon. How could it be? Before he finished speaking, Izo, who was repeatedly fighting with his opponent, stopped his movements involuntarily, and his 2 eyes turned into the appearance of Sharingan. That was a unique illusion of the Sharingan for the tailed beasts. With this illusion, the Uchiha clan could forcibly conclude a summoning contract with the tailed beasts and gain the power to control the tailed beasts, making them unable to resist. Izo didn't understand why he still couldn't defend against the opponent's Sharingan illusion despite all his defenses. At this time, he didn't know that he had already been hit by the forbidden illusion Izanami, and thought that the opponent was deliberately provoking him, so he kept repeating the previous battle scene. In this state, a fairy could easily cover the effect of Izanami with another layer of illusion. Therefore, Izo had no possibility of resistance. The reason why a fairy had to cover Izanami at the cost of sacrificing one eye was because Izanami had a huge flaw. Izanami's technique is not difficult to understand, but Izanagi's technique is really confusing. Logically speaking, Izanagi should not be an illusion at all, but more like a skill that rewrites fate in fantasy. But Kishimoto set its attribute as an illusion, which is so embarrassing. Chapter 354 Studying. Izanami has a strong hallucinogenic ability. It can set 3 key time points, and let the victims wander forever in these 3 time points. The reason why Isabu repeatedly experienced similar battles is because of the effect of this technique. But Izanami itself was created to restrain the Uchiha clan, another forbidden illusion, Izanagi. The purpose is to make the clan members immersed in the illusion world of Izanagi completely accept reality, and no longer use illusions to escape. Once the victim has the idea of escaping with illusions, Izanami will return everything to the starting point and let the victim continue to reincarnate until he accepts reality. In other words, when the victim accepts reality and no longer tries to escape, the illusion of Izanami will completely stop and automatically unlock. Therefore, this is an illusion technique that leaves a backdoor for escape. It is possible that Isabu's consciousness can escape from Izanami, and the possibility is very high, because Izanami was created to restrain Izanagi, and it has a strong targeting. For those who cannot use Izanagi, the effect of this technique will be greatly weakened. The reincarnation condition set by a fairy for the 3-tailed Isabu is covering the Sharingan with fog. Once the opponent creates a fog to try to cover his Sharingan, he is afraid of being controlled by his illusion, and will reincarnate repeatedly at those 3 time points. In other words, when the 3-tailed gives up using the fog to cover his Sharingan, the illusion of Izanami will naturally break. Therefore, a fairy will be in a hurry to use the Sharingan illusion to cover the effect of the illusion of Izanami. With the method of controlling the tailed beasts he learned in the Uchiha Shrine, it is easy to control the tailed beasts with the Sharingan illusion. If there is no external rescue, the 3-tailed will never have a chance to get rid of control. The 3-tailed is sealed in Yagura's body. Except for Yagura himself, ordinary people basically have no chance to contact the 3-tailed in the sealed space. Then, a fairy directed the power of his Sharingan towards Yagura's head. A guy who was unconscious was simply a living target for illusions without any resistance. As long as Yagura's ego consciousness was controlled by illusions, there would be no possibility for the man and the beast to remove each other's illusions. The dignified fourth Mizukage of the Hidden Mist Village, one of the few perfect Jinkriki in the ninja world, was about to become a puppet in his hands. On the other side, after Nana Frost had adapted to physical skills for a period of time, the three snake princesses began to teach him how to use fairy arts. However, this section was actually just a test of his proficiency in the operation of natural energy. In the Sage mode, every ninjutsu he performed would be accompanied by natural energy, thereby obtaining the amplification effect of natural energy, undergoing a qualitative change from ninjutsu to fairy arts. However, because natural energy did not come from him, it was much more difficult to control than chakra. Therefore, in this state, if he wanted to perform the ninjutsu he often used and calmly transform it into fairy arts, he would need a long time to practice. Especially those ninjutsu with more and more complex changes. When they are transformed into immortal arts, it becomes more and more difficult. At the same time, when Qishuang was practicing to transform his own ninjutsu into immortal arts, he also thought about the immortal arts unique to Langqi Cave. Master Xiangxin Shenji, can you teach me your technique of floating in the air? After a short practice of immortal arts, Qishuang asked the green-haired Mako with a shameless face. This kind of flying technique is a rare commodity in the ninja world. Except for the group of air ninjas who rely on black technology to fly, there are not many people in the entire ninja world who have the ability to fly. Therefore, when he first saw the three snake princesses with the ability to float in the air, Qishuang secretly made up his mind to get it. But he also knew clearly that when the three snake princesses maintained their human form, it meant that they entered the immortal state. Therefore, the techniques they used in their human form were naturally immortal arts. Before he cultivated into the sage mode, he could not learn such techniques, even if the other party was willing to teach him. So, he waited until now, when he mastered the sage mode, and began to transform ninjutsu into senjutsu, before asking, "Do you want to learn our levitation technique?" Xiangxin Shenji was a little surprised. In the past, those humans who mastered the sage mode would generally learn from them all kinds of powerful offensive senjutsu in the Ryochi cave. Qishuang was the first one who wanted to learn such a boring technique as a levitation technique. You know, for them, the levitation technique is just for the convenience of traveling, looking down on all living beings from a high place, and showing the majesty of the sage, and it actually doesn't have much meaning. Qishuang nodded and asked expectantly, "Can you teach me?" Although the levitation technique has no direct attack capability, there are not many ninjas in the ninja world who can fly. Once he learns this technique, it means that he will gain the ability to control the air. He can launch a surprise attack on the target below from the sky. Whether it is running away or a surprise attack, it is very convenient. Yes. When Xiangxin Shenji was about to agree, a familiar voice came to her heart. Tell him that, as long as he takes Zinya's reverse scale, we can not only teach him the magic of Langdi Cave, but also grant him the spiritual contract of our snake clan to summon all snakes. Hearing this, Xiangxin Shenji silently agreed in her heart, because it was a message from the white snake immortal. Seeing that the green-haired witch was suddenly distracted, Qishuang tentatively called out, "Master Xiangxin Shenji, HMM." Xiangxin Shenji suddenly came to her senses, and asked him in surprise, "What did you say?" "Nothing." Qishuang shook her head and asked again, "You haven't told me yet, can you teach me the levitation technique?" "Oh, you said this." Xiangxin Shenji covered her mouth and laughed. "Just now, Master Whitesnake Immortal sent me a message that, as long as you go and get Zinya's reverse scale, we can not only teach you the immortal technique of Langdi Cave, but also grant you the spiritual contract of our clan. There is such a good thing." Qishuang almost jumped up with joy. There are many snake tribes in Langdi Cave. If he can get the spiritual contract of their tribe, it means that he can get the powerful help of the spiritual snake tribe. However, he didn't know that any human who can master the immortal mode in Langdi Cave is qualified to sign the spiritual contract of the snake tribe. Although this group of human immortals do not belong to the spiritual snake tribe, because of the source of the immortal technique, they are also considered half snake immortals. Therefore, the White Snake Immortal was also happy to take out the Snake Clan's spiritual contract. You know, spiritual contracts are mutually related, not just one party commanding the other. Chapter 355 Friends. Although it is the norm for ninjas to summon contracted beasts to fight in the ninja world, it does not mean that summoned beasts cannot summon contracted ninjas in return. That is only because most contracted beasts do not know how to use summoning. In addition, reverse summoning consumes a lot of chakra, so there are not many people in the entire ninja world who are qualified to use reverse summoning. Therefore, there are almost no examples of contracted beasts reversing summoning contractors. And this group of immortals just have the qualifications for reverse summoning. Once Qishuang signs a summoning contract with the entire Snake Clan, he can summon any Snake Clan to help, and the immortals can also summon them to Langdi Cave to help at any time. Thus, he gets a powerful immortal assistant. It can be said that this is a contract that benefits both parties. Otherwise, the White Snake Immortal would not take out the Snake Clan contract so easily and just assign a big snake as the object of Qishuang's summoning to help. You know, the summoning contract is not only signed with a single object, but also with multiple objects. For example, a race. If Qishuang only signed a summoning contract with a certain snake, he could only summon that fixed snake. But if he signed a summoning contract with the entire Snake Clan, he could summon any individual in the Snake Clan. Of course, the stronger the object, the more chakra it consumes. This is also the reason why the White Snake Immortal can reverse summon Qishuang, because they are also part of the Snake Clan. After the surprise, Qishuang asked Xiangxin Goddess curiously, by the way, who is Zina? What is the reverse scale? Why must it be pulled out? Do I have to do it? Xiangxin Goddess sighed and said, Zina is a red one-eyed giant snake in Langdi Cave. It was betrayed by the contractor in a battle a few years ago, and one of its eyes was blinded. Since then, its temper has become very irritable, and it often disturbs Langdi Cave. And the so-called reverse scale is the condensation of its tyrannical aura. As long as it is taken off, its tyrannical aura can be greatly eliminated, and it will become gentler. However, although it is a bit noisy, it is not a big deal, so it is not easy for us immortals to deliberately target it. And the other snakes are very annoyed with it, but because of its powerful strength, they can't do anything about it, and this matter has been delayed until now. As she said, Xiangxin Goddess showed a very helpless look on her face. Qishuang was surprised and said, isn't Wansh known as the king of all snakes? How come even it can't deal with that guy named Zenaya? That's not the case. Xiangxin Shenji shook her head and continued, Wansh is only slightly inferior to the four of us immortals in Langdi Cave. It is the most powerful snake except us. Although Zenaya is not as good as it should not be underestimated. Why would Wansh provoke Zenaya for such a boring thing? If the reverse scale is not removed, it will instead cause Zenaya's hatred, which will be a big loss. You know, because of the condensation of tyranny, Zenaya is extremely aggressive. Once it is targeted by it, it can't think of living in peace. Therefore, all the big snakes in the entire Langdi Cave can't do anything to Zenaya. After saying that, it shook its head helplessly again. Zenaya is really annoying. So, the big snake named Zenaya is still a little dangerous? Qishuang said, pinching her chin. It may be difficult for you in the past, but now, it should be a piece of cake. Xiangxin Shenji said with a smile. Okay. Qishuang slowly stood up from the ground, patted the dust on his body and said, please tell me where Xinya is, I will go and get its reverse scale back. Xiangxin Shenji pointed to a tunnel in the east and said seriously, go straight forward along that tunnel, and go deeper into the place where the snake tribe is unwilling to go. Wait until you encounter a one-eyed big snake with a red body, that's Xinya. By the way, be careful of its petrification ability. After saying that, the green-haired witch gave another warning. Oh, it actually has such a special ability? Qishuang was a little surprised. Xiangxin Shenji continued, because our psychic snake tribe has evolved a physique close to nature, even if we can't use decent techniques, before we transform into humans, we can passively absorb natural energy, and develop some special abilities. In a sense, that is an immature fairy art. Qishuang nodded and replied, I remember. After that, he waved goodbye to the green-haired witch, and walked towards the tunnel she pointed out. On the other side, the reinforcement of the Kirigakure searched the battlefield for a long time, but they couldn't find any trace of the 4th generation Mizukage. They only found the 4th generation's usual weapon, the coral stick, and everyone started to get anxious. The 4th generation's coral stick rarely left his hand, and now he even lost his weapon. It was obvious that the 4th generation was in trouble. They couldn't help but get anxious. At this time, 2 figures, one tall and one short, slowly walked out of the dense forest. The short one was their 4th generation Mizukage. The tall one was dressed in black and wore a one-eyed mask with an orange vortex pattern. They had no impression of him at all. However, the 4th Hokage and the guy wearing the one-eyed mask walked very close to each other, and it seemed that they knew each other. Then, the Mist Ninjas immediately surrounded the two of them. "Mizukage-sama, where did you go before? We couldn't find you anywhere, and we only saw the coral stick you left behind." The leading Mist Ninja rushed to Yagura and asked anxiously, while offering the long stick with a hook with both hands. Yagura took the coral stick expressionlessly, did not answer, and only said coldly, "All of you retreat." But the leading Mist Ninja looked at the red and swollen burns on Yagura's face, and then looked at the one-eyed masked man next to Yagura, and hesitated. The 4th Hokage was in a depressed state, and it seemed that the burns were a bit serious. It was a time when they needed protection, and there was such a stranger here. He was really worried. "Retreat." Yagura didn't say anything extra, just spit out 2 words coldly, and his tone was very firm. But this person, the leading Mist Ninja pointed at Afei, and was interrupted by the other party before he finished speaking. "I'm a good friend of your 4th Mizukage, so don't worry that I will hurt him," Afei said in a relaxed tone. "Am I right, Yagura?" As he said that, he patted the green-haired boy's shoulder intimately. Seeing this, the surrounding Mist Ninjas dropped their jaws, because they clearly remembered that the 4th Mizukage had a bad temper and didn't get along well with adults, but was closer to the children in the village, so the 4th Mizukage generally didn't associate with older people. Now, it was really surprising that such a big friend suddenly appeared. What surprised them even more was that the 4th Mizukage actually nodded slightly and said expressionlessly, "Yes, he is my good friend." Chapter 356 Nightlin. But it is a duty to protect the Mizukage-sama, not such an unknown outsider. The leading Mist Ninja glanced at Afei and said in a tough tone. For a moment, the atmosphere around them began to become heavy. Seeing this, Afei hurried to smooth things over and said in a considerate way, "Why don't I protect Yagura closely and you stay hidden around and keep a certain distance? Should this be okay?" Asking the Mist Ninja to retreat was not actually Yagura's original intention, but Afei's self-will expressed through Yagura's mouth. Because, after all, illusion control cannot make the words and deeds of the person who was hit as natural as normal people, but will appear a little dull, which is easy to arouse suspicion from others. So he used Yagura's mouth to refuse everyone to approach to prevent them from seeing clues. This is also the reason why Yagura seemed to be taciturn after he controlled him. Talking too much will also easily reveal flaws. Although the fact that he used illusion to control Yagura could not be concealed forever, it was not the time to expose it yet, and he still needed time to make arrangements, so he would try his best to conceal this fact. After hearing what the Mizukage said, the leading Mist Ninja looked at Yagura's unwavering expression and was helpless. Yagura was the Mizukage after all. If they didn't even obey the Mizukage's orders, who would dare to command them? Helplessly, he had to make a gesture to the subordinates around him, and then slowly stepped aside. The Mist Ninjas received the signal and immediately dispersed and hid in the surrounding forest. Although they hid well, Afei could still faintly feel that there were dozens of different chakra auras within a radius of 10 meters. This was the keen perception brought by the other half of his body's Hashirama cells. Then, he patted Yagura's shoulder again and whispered, "Let's go. It's time to go back to the hidden mist village." Then, in the puzzled eyes of many Mist Ninjas, the surly 4th generation was supported by a big friend and slowly walked towards the hidden mist village. On the other side, Qishuang caught a small snake more than 2 meters long on the way to find Zanaya. Although 2 meters long is considered very large for ordinary snakes, in this Langdi cave, it is about the size of a baby. It is too small. Of course, He did not catch the snake for fun, nor for tasting snake meat, but to ask for directions. The Longdi cave has many tunnels, and he can only ensure that he will not get lost. However, it is not an easy task to find Zinaya in this complex cave. Therefore, he needs a guide who is familiar with the surrounding environment. In this Longdi cave, the most suitable guides are the various snakes of all sizes. The snakes here are not ordinary snakes. Like the toads in Miyaboki Mountain, they have extremely high intelligence, so they can communicate with people and lead him to find Zinaya. Can you understand what I say? Qishuang grabbed its neck and used ice escape to freeze its lower body, making it unable to move. Then he said, if you can, not if you can't, shake your head. Then, he saw the emerald green snake looking at him with a horrified look and then shook his head. Qishuang laughed angrily, slapped it hard, and sneered, you don't understand what I say, and you still know how to shake your head? Hearing this, the little snake looked at him with even more fear. Immediately, it changed its shaking head to nodding, and nodded desperately. Don't worry, as long as you are obedient, I won't do anything to you. Qishuang's tone immediately softened a lot. Seeing this, the little snake seemed to finally breathe a sigh of relief and nodded again. You can't speak. Seeing that the little snake just shook its head, he asked in surprise. The little snake nodded, indicating its acquiescence. It is true that the psychic snakes have extremely high intelligence, and they can even speak like humans when they grow up. But at the moment, this little snake is still very small, and in its infancy. It can understand what Qishuang said, but it itself has not yet learned the ability to express itself in language. Qishuang thought for a while, frowned and said, well, I ask you questions, and you answer them. If it is, you nod. If it is not, you shake your head. Do you understand? He looked at the little snake seriously, and the other party nodded immediately. Then, Qishuang asked again, do you know where the big snake called Zinaya is? The little snake was stunned for a moment, but still nodded. Seeing this, Qishuang couldn't help but reveal a relieved smile. Since the other party knew where Zinaya was, then this guide was not caught in vain. Then, he said to the little snake, I'm ordered by the white snake immortal to remove Zinaya's reverse scales and calm the disturbance it caused. Now, I want you to take me to find it. As long as we find Zinaya, I will let you leave safely. Do you understand? In order to prevent the little snake from deliberately leading him astray for revenge, he deliberately used the name of the white snake immortal. As if thinking seriously, the little snake's two eyeballs spun around, and then nodded. If this terrible young man in front of him can solve Zinaya's problem, it doesn't mind helping to lead the way. After all, the irritable Zinaya is too dangerous. Especially for little snakes like them. Once they encounter it, there is only one way to die. In its memory, many playmates have been swallowed by Zinaya. It doesn't want to run into that dangerous red snake next time it comes out. Seeing it nod, Qishuang secretly breathed a sigh of relief, and then lifted the ice, and put it back on the ground. Now, take me to find it. He ordered the little snake at his feet. Then, the little snake stretched its frozen body a little, swam to the front, and took him deep into the tunnel. On the other side, under the protection of many mist ninjas, Afeni took Yagura, and entered the hidden mist village very calmly. Looking at this ninja village that looked like a huge city, he secretly vowed to completely destroy it, and bury it with Lin. At the same time, the senior officials in the village, who had been anxiously waiting for it, finally breathed a sigh of relief when they saw the fourth Mizukage return safely. The fourth did not listen to the dissuasion, and insisted on going his own way. He had to chase Biwajuzo and Uchiha in person, and they couldn't stop him. Biwajuzo was fine. After all, he was a traitor from the hidden mist village. They knew him well, and it was not that difficult to deal with him. But that Uchiha was not from the hidden mist village, but from Konoha, and was a murderer who slaughtered his entire clan. Judging from this record, he is definitely one of the strongest men in the ninja world, and the intelligence is insufficient. The danger of fighting with Uchiha is far greater than that of Biwajuzo. Later, after receiving the message from the front that the fourth generation was missing, they were even more anxious. They regretted not stopping the fourth generation at the beginning. Now, seeing the fourth generation return safely, the big stone in their hearts finally fell. Then, the Mist Ninja, led by many high-level people, immediately surrounded him. Get out of here. Before everyone got close, they immediately saw Yagura shouting, and red chakra oozing out of his body continuously, and he took an attacking posture. Chapter 357 Doubts. Lord Mizukage, what are you doing? Everyone hurriedly stopped and asked in surprise. As a Jinkriki, Yagura would be a disaster if he went crazy. Although Yagura is not in danger of the tailed beast going berserk, he has a bad temper and is unscrupulous when he attacks, which is only slightly better than the tailed beast going berserk. For safety reasons, everyone stopped 5 meters away and did not dare to move forward for fear of irritating him. At the same time, Afeni also said at the right time, everyone, Lord Mizukage suffered a loss in the fight with Uchiha Itachi today, and he is not in a good mood, so please don't get too close to him. Then, he turned his head and said to the figure next to him who was shrouded in red chakra, good friend, collect your chakra. They know you are not in a good mood, so they won't bother you again. You said, right? As he said that, he turned around and glanced at everyone in a signal. The leading Miss Ninja high-ranking officials, after looking at the fierce look in the eyes of the fourth Hokage, could only nod helplessly and gave up the idea of approaching Yagura. It seemed that the words of the one-eyed masked man had worked. The red chakra on Yagura's body slowly faded, and he also put away his fierce look just now. Everyone was shocked. When did the fourth Hokage become so easy to talk to? Everyone had the same question in their hearts. Yagura had a bad temper and rarely listened to others' advice, especially when he was about to fight over a disagreement. No one could persuade him. And this guy with a one-eyed mask, just a few words, made Yagura calm down, which was really incredible. Then, they began to discuss among themselves. Who is the guy next to the fourth Hokage? Have you seen him? Someone asked his companion in a low voice. I don't know him. That mask is so eye-catching, but I have never seen him in Miss Ninja. The companion shook his head. I haven't seen him either. No. The people around all said they didn't know him. While everyone was confused, the leader of the Miss Ninja, who had previously protected Yagura all the way back, rushed to the front of the crowd and whispered a few words to a senior executive. Friend? After listening to the report of the Miss Ninja leader, the Miss Ninja senior executive still looked suspicious. It was really strange that the fourth generation suddenly had such a big friend. But judging from the current situation, the fourth generation obeyed the man's words, so the relationship of good friends did not seem to be fake. However, he always felt that something was wrong, but he couldn't tell. Soon, the rest of the people around also got the news that the one-eyed masked man was the fourth generation's friend. After waiting for a long time, seeing that the people around him were gradually losing their vigilance against him, Afeni said to everyone again, everyone, the fourth generation felt a little tired after the battle today. Please make way for me. I will take him back to the Mizukage building. Hearing this, everyone looked at each other, hesitated for a long time, and then reluctantly made way. Seeing this scene, Afeni's mouth under the mask couldn't help but curl up proudly. Although everyone's suspicion of him has not been completely dispelled, Yagura's rebelliousness can temporarily suppress everyone's thoughts and give him a little more time to make arrangements. Otherwise, the Mizukage will be angry. Then, Afeni followed Yagura and slowly walked towards the Mizukage building in the center of the village under the surprised eyes of everyone. Suddenly, he saw a one-eyed Mist Ninja wearing an eye patch in the crowd next to him. Is it him? He immediately recognized that this was a member of the Mist Ninja team that fought with him Fallen's body. Then, he used illusion to hint Yagura to stop, and then bent down, pretending to listen to Yagura's instructions for a few words, and turned around and pointed at the eye patch Mist Ninja in the crowd. Mizukage asked you to follow, and I have something to ask you later, Afeni said to him seriously. Me? King pointed at himself, confused. Even though he had served the fourth Hokage for several years, he still couldn't figure out what the surly Mizukage was up to at the moment. Yes, that's you. Afeni nodded. Hearing this, King did not act rashly, but looked at several high-ranking officials not far away. The current situation was a bit strange, and he wanted to seek the opinions of several high-ranking officials. Seeing his inquiring eyes, several high-ranking officials immediately gave him a permissive look. The fourth Hokage's condition today was really a bit strange, and they were worried that they couldn't get close to find out. Now that he took the initiative to asking to follow him, it was exactly what the high-ranking officials wanted. Otherwise, if the fourth Hokage and the so-called good friend were left alone, it would really be unreassuring. After receiving hints from several high-ranking officials, King slowly walked out of the crowd, rushed to Yagura's side, and stood shoulder to shoulder with Afei. Then, the three of them moved towards the Mizukage building again. "What's your name? When did you meet the fourth Hokage?" Following behind the Mizukage, King lowered his voice and asked the one-eyed masked man next to him. "You can call me Afei. I was the friend of the fourth generation in childhood. We haven't seen each other for a long time, so it's normal that you don't know me." Afei replied calmly and made up an identity. He was not afraid of others checking the files because he only wanted temporary confusion, not permanent concealment. As long as he could get away with it temporarily, it would be enough. "What about you? How should I call you?" Afei held the back of his head with both hands and pretended to be relaxed, but secretly still did not relax the control of the illusion on Yagura. "You can call me King. I'm one of the assistants of the Mizukage," King said seriously while looking at the young man next to him. He tried to see something from the other person, but he couldn't see anything. This guy called Afei acted very calmly. "Oh, that's really a coincidence. No wonder the Mizukage deliberately asked you to follow. It turns out that this is your job," Afei said in surprise. Unexpectedly, the guy he named turned out to be the assistant of Mizukage. Now he didn't have to make up an excuse for Yagura's inexplicable naming. Because of King's identity, all this seemed to be natural. The two walked and talked, and soon, the Mizukage building was in sight. On the other side, Qishuang, led by the emerald green snake, walked around in the tunnel for a long time before the snake stopped moving forward. "Is Zina nearby?" he asked the snake tentatively. The snake didn't respond, but just collapsed on the rock by the roadside, showing a weak look, and it seemed very tired. Snakes are not good at endurance, even he walked a little weak, let alone this little snake. He waited patiently for a long time, until it regained a little vitality, and then asked again, "Is Zina nearby?" The snake raised its head, and was about to answer, but there was a loud rumbling sound from the depths of the tunnel, as if a giant was hammering the rock wall. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 358 Sneak Attack. Hearing the rumbling sound, the little snake trembled with fear. Qishuang asked tentatively, "Is this the noise made by Zina?" Looking at the depths of the tunnel, the little snake nodded repeatedly. Snakes are lazy by nature. Except for the violent Zinaya, no other big snake would be so idle to make such a big noise. Looking at its trembling fear, Qishuang waved her hand and said, "Okay, you can leave. I will walk the rest of the way by myself." Hearing this, the little snake was as if pardoned. After nodding a few more times, it hurriedly slipped down the rock and swam quickly to the other end of the tunnel, disappearing in a flash. Qishuang couldn't help but wonder if the guy was pretending to be exhausted just now. Who cares? It's enough to find Zinaya. Looking at the direction where the little snake disappeared, Qishuang shook his head helplessly, turned to the other side, followed the sound, and continued to move forward into the depths of the tunnel. As the distance got closer, the rumbling sound became louder and louder. After a lot of twists and turns, Qishuang followed the sound, passed through the tunnel, and came to a slightly open cave. He immediately saw a red snake in the cave, and the rumbling sound was caused by the red snake rubbing its body against the rock wall. Just as Qishuang stepped into the cave, the red snake that was rubbing its body against the rock wall suddenly stopped. There is a human breath. Sensing the unusual smell in the air, the red snake immediately poked its head out and began to search around. Soon, it found the source of the smell near a tunnel, entrance in the northeast corner of the cave. It was a young ninja in a white robe. "Human, I now order you to come over and scratch my back quickly. If you feel comfortable with me scratching, I will let you go today." The red snake ordered Qishuang fiercely and then rubbed against the rock wall impatiently. If it had followed its previous attitude, it would have pounced on it and attacked directly, and would not have bothered with such a human. But today, for some reason, it felt extremely itchy, but it had no claws to scratch, so it could only relieve the itch by rubbing against the rock wall. However, rubbing is only a stopgap measure and cannot really relieve the itch. If it were an ordinary snake, it would probably just put up with it and endure it, but it is not a patient snake, but an irritable one. After a long time of scratching, the itch was unbearable, and it couldn't stop. Its mood became worse and worse, and it urgently needed someone to help scratch it. Therefore, after seeing a strange human appear, it threw away its hatred for humans, and did not rush to attack as usual, but instead ordered the other party to scratch itself. "Are you Zina?" Looking at the snake rubbing desperately on the rock wall, Qishuang asked tentatively. There are many snakes in Langdi Cave, and it is possible that there is more than one red snake. "Yes, I'm Zinya." Seeing that the young man had no intention of coming to help, the red snake rubbed and roared, "Come and help me scratch it, otherwise, I will swallow you in one bite." The strange itch on its body almost drove it crazy. At this time, the only thought in its mind was relieving the itch. It didn't care about anything else. Seeing its painful appearance, Qishuang thought for a while, nodded and said, "Okay, I'll help you right away." After that, he put one hand behind his back and quietly gathered chakra, and walked over with a smile. Zinya's body size is much smaller than one snake, but it is only compared with one snake. According to his visual estimation, the opponent's body length is at least more than 30 meters, an absolute behemoth. Although he is confident that he can defeat the opponent, it is estimated that it will take a lot of effort to fight head on. Now, the opponent actually wants him to go over and scratch it closely. This is a once-in-a-lifetime sneak attack opportunity, and he is naturally unwilling to let it go easily. "Hurry up, I'm so itchy," Zinaya urged loudly while rubbing against the rock wall. "Here it comes, here it comes." Qishuang replied with a smile, speeding up the gathering of chakra and speeding up his pace. Zinaya's body was huge, and this huge body also meant strong physical strength and resistance to ninjutsu. Qishuang had to use a lot of chakra to cast a spell to ensure that he could defeat the enemy with one blow. Otherwise, he would face Zinaya's crazy counterattack. When the red snake body was less than 2 meters away from him, he estimated that the chakra had accumulated almost enough, so he rushed up in one step and pressed the palm with a lot of chakra accumulated on the snake body. Ice release, ice sealing technique. In an instant, a large amount of chakra was transformed through the nature of ice and released by Qishuang on the snake body. Then a layer of white ice condensed under his palm and quickly spread in all directions. Zinya, who was rubbing to relieve the itch, was invaded by the ice attribute chakra. A wave of icy coldness surged throughout his body, and he shivered immediately. His head, which was overwhelmed by the strange itch, finally woke up because of the cold air. He hurriedly looked down and saw a layer of white ice crystals spreading around his snake body at a very fast speed. In the blink of an eye, the white ice crystals had completely frozen half of his body. He tried hard to break the ice layer on his body to avoid being completely frozen, but the hardness of the ice crystals was far beyond his imagination. In addition, the snake body has no limbs, and it relies entirely on the movement of the entire spine and muscles to exert a powerful strangling force. The frozen half of the body was restricted in movement and could hardly exert strength. At this moment, with only half of the body's strength left, it was even more unable to break the hard ice layer. He could only watch the terrifying ice crystals coming towards his neck with an unstoppable attitude. Just when it thought it would be frozen and trapped to death in the ice crystals that spread rapidly upward stopped at a position more than 3 meters below its jaw. The freezing stopped. After surviving the catastrophe, it roared to Qishuang in a cowardly manner, "Human, don't think you can make me surrender like this. I'm telling you, I will never fight for any human again. Never." Qishuang's reluctance made it mistakenly think that this was another guy who wanted to subdue it and make it sign a spiritual contract to serve. However, it had experienced betrayal once and was no longer willing to trust humans. Not to mention signing a contract with humans to help fight. It was simply wishful thinking. Hearing its roar, Qishuang slowly withdrew his palm from the snake's body and looked at it in surprise, wondering, "Did you misunderstand something?" As he said that, He jumped onto the frozen body and climbed along the ice layer towards Zinaya's neck, as if walking up a staircase. Because he saw a large scale growing in the opposite direction on Zinaya's neck. I guess that was the reverse scale. Chapter 359 Invalid. Aren't you here to sign a summoning contract with me? Zinaya looked at Qishuang suspiciously and secretly gathered chakra into his mouth. Although it is not the most powerful snake in Longdi Cave, it can be regarded as an existence with excellent combat power. Therefore, many humans have the idea of signing a summoning contract with it after seeing it. Like today, it is the first time that it is attacked without signing a summoning contract. Qishuang climbed up while looking at it and said jokingly, "The white snake immortal has promised me that, as long as I remove your reverse scale, it will give me the summoning contract of the entire snake clan. By then, all the big snakes in Longdi Cave will be summoned by my summoning. Do you think it is necessary for me to sign a contract with you alone? Besides, do you think your strength is really worth me deliberately looking for you? Unless there is a special need, when choosing a summoning beast, ninjas will look for those beasts that are similar to themselves, or even stronger than themselves to sign a contract. Because they are looking for a reliable fighting partner, not a soy sauce bottle that may drag them down. Although Zinya is very strong, that's all." After a long period of training and accumulation in this Longdi Cave, Qishuang's strength has reached a very high level. You know, before entering Longdi Cave, he was already at the level of a Jonin, and now it has been further sublimated. Under normal conditions, even if he is not as good as the legendary 3 ninjas, he is probably almost the same. If he uses fairy arts again, he is fully confident that he can compete with them. Although Zinya was taken down by him in one blow, it was because of a sneak attack, but it was enough to show the gap between them. Because, if the strength of both sides is equal, even if it is a sneak attack, it should not be a one-sided situation. It can only be said that compared with him, Zinya is too weak. It is not worth him to deliberately sign a spiritual contract with him. When facing an opponent weaker than him, he may be able to summon Zinya to play, but when facing an opponent stronger than him, or equal to him, Zinya can hardly help. At this moment, the only ones he can really take a fancy to in the entire Longdi Cave are Wansh and the 3 snake princesses. As for the white snake immortal, although he looked old and frail, he was definitely not powerless. However, because of his strong immortal power, it would cost a lot to summon him. Qishuang estimated that, even if 10 of him were tied together, it would not be enough to summon him. Perhaps, only the 10 tails Jinchuriki had so much chakra to summon him. Seeing the contempt in his eyes, Zinaya was ashamed and angry, and roared, "You are too arrogant, human." Then, a turbid liquid spurted out of its mouth. Venom? Qishuang was a little surprised, because the larger the snake, the less poisonous it is, because they chose the body and abandoned the venom function on the road of evolution. It is hard to imagine that a giant like Zinaya would use poison. But although he was surprised, he did not intend to resist with his body. Because, when he ended the freezing and left Zinaya's head outside, he was ready to face the counterattack. Then, he raised his left hand, spread his 5 fingers, and the chakra was mobilized with his mind, forming a thin layer of white light on the surface of his body in an instant. That was his ice release chakra mode activated. After countless days of practice and adjustment, his technique has become increasingly perfect, and he can also send and receive from the heart and release quickly. At the same time, seeing him instinctively stretching out his hand to try to resist, Zinaya excitedly screamed, "Turn into a permanent stone sculpture, arrogant human." As for the strange white glow on the other part of his body, it was selectively ignored. Because the turbid liquid is its petrifying poison. Strictly speaking, it is not real poison, but an immature fairy art. Because of the strengthening characteristics of the fairy art, its petrifying poison is difficult to resist, and those who are hit will eventually turn into a stone sculpture helplessly. With this move, it turns all humans who are hostile to it into stone sculptures. And this human is no exception. Wow, the turbid mucus shot straight onto Qishuang's left hand. His palm did not completely block it, and part of it slipped through his fingers and shot onto his chest and abdomen. Then, Qishuang realized something was wrong. A layer of grey stone appeared on the left hand stained with turbid mucus, as if it had turned into stone. If he had not felt that there was still a clear perception on his left hand fingers, He would have almost thought that his palm was completely petrified. Is this Zinaya's special ability? Looking at the grey stone spreading to his shoulders, Qishuang couldn't help but think of Shion Zinshinji's reminder. Then, he looked at the proud Zinaya and praised sincerely, "It's quite interesting, but your trick doesn't work on me." As he said that, he shook it lightly, and immediately the grey stone spreading from his left arm and chest and abdomen was completely shattered, revealing the white glow underneath again, like a chakra coat like quicksand. Zinaya's special ability is indeed very strong, but it's unfortunate that he met him. Immortal arts, naturally, need immortal arts to resist. But Zinaya's ability is not mature. It is just because of his physique close to nature that he uses a little bit of natural energy when using his special ability. It is very different from the real immortal arts that mobilize natural energy. After Qishuang successfully controlled natural energy and became an immortal, although he did not use the sage mode at ordinary times, some natural energy would remain in his body. Therefore, when Zinaya's immature immortal arts attacked him, they would be offset by the natural energy remaining in his body, and the effect would be greatly weakened. Combined with the all-round powerful defense ability of the chakra mode, Zinaya's special ability had almost no effect on him. Qishuang could understand the reason, but Zinaya did not. When he saw that the tricks that had always been successful in the past had no effect on this human, his eyes bulged out. How is it possible? He couldn't help but shout out. Qishuang stopped and said to him in a playful tone, "You use this immature magic to deal with a real immortal. Don't you think it's ridiculous?" After that, he walked forward a few steps and stopped at Zinaya's neck, his eyes locked on the scale on the other's body that grew in the opposite direction. A real immortal? Zinaya was surprised, and then he came to his senses. The other party turned out to be a genuine immortal. No wonder its petrification poison had no effect. At this time, it saw the other party's hand on its reverse scale. Obviously, the other party was about to pull out its reverse scale. Don't touch it," Zinaya hurriedly exclaimed, and his tone couldn't help but carry a hint of pleading. Chapter 360, Taking Scales. "Why can't I move?" Qishuang raised his head and said in surprise. Lady Xiangxin Shenji said that this reverse scale is the product of the condensation of your tyrannical spirit. It is precisely because of its existence that the depression in your heart has been difficult to dissipate for a long time, so you often toss and turn in the Langdi cave, trying to vent your unhappiness. Taking it off, whether it is for you or your people, it will be a good thing, right? Seeing that he stopped the action temporarily, Zinaya secretly breathed a sigh of relief and hurriedly said, "I also know that taking off the reverse scale will make me feel much more comfortable, but it hurts." "Hurts?" Qishuang was very puzzled and said casually, "If it hurts, won't it pass if you endure it?" Staring at the hand on his reverse scale, Zinaya said anxiously, "If I could bear it, I would have taken it off by myself long ago. How can it be your turn to do it?" It was precisely because he had tried it a long time ago and couldn't bear the pain of taking off the reverse scale that he kept the reverse scale until now. He didn't take it off himself, and he didn't allow others to touch it. Qishuang was curious and asked, "Does it really hurt so much?" As he said that, he tried to pull out the scales with a little strength. Then, he heard Zinaya screaming and smashing his head against the stone wall next to him in pain. In an instant, rocks fell and rolled, as if hail was falling. Fortunately, most of Zinaya's body was frozen by him, and he couldn't use any strength at all. Only his head and a part of his neck were outside, and the range of motion was not very large. Therefore, the broken stones that were smashed down by him were not larger than a fist, and were directly ignored by Qishuang, who turned on the ice release chakra mode. Those broken stones hit his body, and all of them were bounced aside by the chakra coat without exception. After a long time, Zinaya stopped wailing and leaned his head against the stone wall, panting. "Isn't it just pulling out a scale? Why does it hurt so much? Are you pretending to deceive me?" Qishuang said to him suspiciously, but he also felt that Zinaya was not acting. It really hurt. "What do you know?" Zinaya leaned against the stone wall, glared at him fiercely, and panted, "The reverse scale is the condensation of the negative emotions in my heart, which also means that it is connected to my breath. And right below the reverse scale is where my heart is. The two auras are intertwined. When the reverse scale is pulled out, it means that the heart will be affected, so it is extremely painful. So, this reverse scale. Zenaya didn't finish his words, but Qishuang had already understood what he meant from his pitiful eyes. However, this reverse scale is related to whether he can obtain the Snake Clan's spiritual contract and the special fairy art of Langdi Cave. If he gave up, because of pity for Zenaya, he really couldn't do it. After thinking for a long time, he said to it, I can use Ice Escape to make you temporarily fall into an unconscious dormant state. In this state, you are no different from a dead snake. You will no longer have any consciousness, nor will you be awakened by the pain of removing the reverse scales. Even if I chop off your head, you will not wake up. What do you think? Zenaya looked at him cautiously and asked tentatively, can I refuse? Removing the reverse scales is too painful. If it is possible, it is not willing to try it at all. What's more, this method was proposed by a stranger who attacked it. It really doesn't trust it. Qishuang looked at the red snake jokingly, while gathering chakra in his hands. He said, I'm asking for your opinion to give you face. Since you don't want to, then I have to use force. After that, in Zenaya's horrified eyes, Qishuang pressed his hands on the opponent's red snake body, and turned his chakra into icy air, and poured it in. Faced with Qishuang's tough attitude, Zenaya was so angry that he couldn't speak, but he was helpless. Then, it felt cold all over, as if it had lost consciousness due to the cold, and its ability to perceive various parts of its body was gradually lost. As its ability to perceive various parts of its body decreased, its consciousness became more and more blurred. It felt more and more sleepy, and gradually it couldn't even lift its eyelids. Finally, it closed its eyes completely, and fell into a deep sleep. Okay, this time we can do it. Seeing Zenaya lose consciousness, Qishuang breathed a sigh of relief. He converted chakra into cold air, and used the principle of momentary fragrance to block Zenaya's nerve transmission, thus achieving the effect of paralysis. However, Zenaya was too big, and consumed a lot of his chakra. Fortunately, after he experienced the baptism of seed of immortal art, his chakra amount increased by nearly 10 times, and such consumption was still within the tolerable range. Then, while Zenaya was dormant, he locked his target on the reverse scale. He took out a kunai from his pocket, cut Zenaya's skin, and dug out the reverse scale. Okay, it's done. After putting the bloody red reverse scale into his pocket, Qishuang glanced at the still sleeping Zenaya, then snapped his fingers to remove the ice, then jumped off the snake body, followed the way he came, and walked back leisurely. As for whether Zenaya would die of pain from the sequelae of pulling out the reverse scale, when he woke up, he couldn't care. At least, this sequelae should be much better than the process of pulling out the reverse scale. He was already merciful enough. On the other side, under the leadership of Yagura, a Feian king entered the Mizukage building one after another. Then, Yagura ordered the guards hidden around, all retreat. After receiving this inexplicable order, a captain of the Mist Ninja immediately appeared and knelt in front of Yagura, whispering, Lord Mizukage, it is a duty to protect you. What he was thinking in his heart was self-evident. Yagura didn't say much, just spit out 2 words coldly. Back off. Feeling the murderous intent implied in these 2 words, the captain of the Mist Ninja, who was kneeling on one knee on the ground, couldn't help but break out in a cold sweat. He had not forgotten how the 4th Hokage was invincible in the entire Mist Ninja during the battle for the Mizukage. Especially the nearly earth-shattering tailed beast ball beam, which killed countless Mist Ninja in just a moment, was really terrifying. At the same time, finding that Yagura showed murderous intent, King hurriedly winked at the captain of the Mist Ninja and said, Lord Mizukage doesn't need your protection for the time being. You should withdraw from the Mizukage building and stay outside. Hearing this, the captain of the Mist Ninja wiped the cold sweat from his forehead, gestured to his companions around him, and then led them out of the Mizukage building. With the strength of the 4th Hokage, they really didn't need his personal protection. Instead of contradicting each other and risking being killed, it's better to stay outside peacefully. After all, no one would think that their life is too long. After making sure everyone had left, Arfei turned to King and said, now, there are only 2 of us left here. Why don't we have a chat? Chapter 361 Action 2. King looked at the one-eyed mask suspiciously, and then looked at Yagura next to him. They were clearly 3 people here, and he didn't understand why the other party said there were 2. Under the mask, Afei raised the corner of his mouth, but he didn't intend to explain for the other party. Then, he looked at Yagura next to him, and whispered to him, "Yagura is a good boy, he will definitely not disturb our chat, right?" Then, in King's surprised eyes, the stubborn 4th generation, who rarely listened to others' advice, nodded, and shrank back to his office chair where he often rested very obediently, completely without his usual mischievousness. He was confused. Why did the 4th generation's personality change so much after he went out and came back? Could it be that he was hit by an illusion, or a spiritual secret technique? Seeing the strange appearance of the 4th generation, King couldn't help but have such a thought in his mind. But then he thought about it again. The 4th generation was a perfect Jinkriki, with the help of the 3 tails in his body. Whether it was an illusion or a spiritual secret technique, the 3 tails could help solve it from a third party. It was impossible for the 4th generation to be controlled by illusion or mind magic. Therefore, he had to dispel this doubt in his heart. But what happened to the 4th generation? King racked his brains, but could not figure it out. At this time, Afei next to him said, "I still remember that when we first met, you brought 3 subordinates. At that time, I hit you, and the little devil with a knife and seriously injured you. I thought that with such injuries, you would definitely die, but I didn't expect that you can still live until now, which really surprised me." As he said, Afei shook his head with emotion. Hearing this, King couldn't help but jump. He never remembered when he had fought with such a one-eyed mask, and he didn't remember that he had been beaten to death by the other party. However, from the meaning of the other party's words, they might have been enemies. Realizing this, he subconsciously dodged to the side, intending to keep a distance from this unknown guy. "Want to hide? Don't you think it's too late?" Seeing this, Afei sneered, and immediately reached out to grab it. At the same time, King finally believed that this one-eyed mask was hostile to him. Bayan. The moment he stood firm, he immediately mobilized chakra to open the Byakugan under the right eye mask, and accumulated part of the chakra in his right palm. After locking part of the meridians of the opponent's body through the perspective ability of the Byakugan, he immediately slapped his right palm. Water style, Blue Dragon Palm, that is a modified version of the 4th generation's Coral Palm, a water attributed ninjutsu. Because he had been following the 4th generation for many years, he was familiar with it. Once the 4th generation was bored, he taught him the Coral Palm directly. However, the Coral Palm is a technique that can only be activated by borrowing the chakra of the 3 tails. King is not the 3 tails Jinchuriki, and he cannot practice the training method of this move. Therefore, King spent a lot of time to modify this move into water style, Blue Dragon Palm. Combined with his Byakugan, once it hits the opponent, it can partially block the opponent's meridian points and cause a short-term limb stiffness. In general, it is also a restrictive move similar to the Coral Palm. However, in terms of restrictive power, his Blue Dragon Palm is not as good as the Coral Palm. It's just that, because of the blocking of meridian points, his Blue Dragon Palm can interfere with the opponent's chakra mobilization, and its effect is more diverse. Afei did not dodge, but still grabbed it with one hand, allowing the right palm with the blue glow to hit his chest. Then, in King's surprised eyes, his right palm passed through the opponent's chest without any hindrance, as if it hit a phantom. "Do you miss it?" Afei said jokingly, and rushed towards King. Hearing this, and seeing the phantom-like, intangible body, King suddenly remembered something. "It's you." He screamed and hurriedly shouted to Yagura, who was not far away, "Lord Mizukage, this guy's our enemy. Kill him quickly." Unfortunately, the 4th Hokage curled up in the office chair did not move, as if he did not hear his words at all. It was not until then, with the help of the Byakugan, that King noticed that there were many abnormal chakras in the 4th Hokage's brain. It was not the 4th Hokage's own chakra, nor the 3 tails chakra, but it was very similar to the chakra of the one-eyed mask in front of him. There is no doubt that the 4th Hokage was hit by the one-eyed mask's illusion. How is it possible? Such a result made King speechless. The 4th Hokage, who had the 3 tails to help him, was actually hit by an illusion, which was really incomprehensible to him. What is impossible with the Sharingan? With sarcasm, Afei used the ability of virtualization to pass behind King and took advantage of King's distraction to grab his shoulder with his backhand. Then, a vortex of emptiness suddenly opened up on the right eye hole of his mask, and King didn't even have a chance to resist and was sucked in all at once. The entire Mizukage office fell silent again, leaving only a dazed Mizukage and the sinister Afei. At this moment, there was a knock on the door outside the office. Knock, knock. Lord Mizukage, what happened? A mist ninja guard knocked on the door outside and asked, followed by several companions. Just now, they found that there was an unusual movement in the Mizukage's office, so they rushed up in a hurry. However, due to the 4th Hokage's earlier order, they did not dare to rush in directly and could only knock on the door outside to ask. Afei looked at Yagura on the office chair and then hinted to him with an illusion, saying, "It's okay, you all retreat." Hearing this, the mist ninjas outside the door looked at each other, and after hesitating for a while, they had no choice but to retreat. The noise just now was not very loud, so it seemed that nothing serious had happened. Besides, the 4th generation was still staying in the office, so they were too lazy to investigate further. If they angered the 4th generation, that would be bad. In a meeting room outside the Mizukage building, many Kirigakure high-level officials were still anxiously waiting for King to come back and report the situation. The 4th generation's situation was really suspicious, but he did not allow others to approach casually. Fortunately, there was the White Eye Killer following them. They only needed to wait a little longer, and perhaps they could learn something from King's inquiries. Unfortunately, they were destined not to wait for King's reply. On the other side, not long after Qishuang left, she heard Zinya's heart-wrenching screams coming from the tunnel behind her. It should be that the cold air had lost its effect, and Zinya regained consciousness. The pain left after the reverse scale was taken away was enough to torture him. It would probably take a long time to completely eliminate the pain and return to normal. Qishuang followed the way she came, walking back happily. As soon as he reached a fork in the road, he saw from afar a huge horned snake with purple and black rings coming out from the other end of the tunnel. Chapter 362 Provocation. "Hey, isn't this Master Wansh? Where are you going?" Qishuang called out loudly from the other end of the tunnel. Hearing the call, Wansh stopped and looked carefully and found that it was a human youth who called out to it. Moreover, the man looked familiar. Thinking about it carefully, it remembered that the young man was the guy who used the spiritual magic to tease it that year. It was just that it had not seen him for a few years. The boy had grown into a young man, and his appearance had changed a lot, so it did not recognize him at the first time. Then, Wansh looked at him coldly, and then turned around and swam to the other side, without paying attention to the other party. It has not forgotten the scene of being deeply taught a lesson by Tuan Jinji in the past. Therefore, although it gritted its teeth at the young man who escaped from the ice, it chose to endure it and just pretend that it had not seen this unlucky guy today. Unfortunately, it wanted to turn a blind eye and did not want to cause trouble, but Qishuang did not think so. He had already obtained Zina's reverse scale, which meant that it was a sure thing to get the spiritual contract of the snake clan. In the future, he can use the spiritual art to summon the snakes at will. Generally, if the weaker snakes are summoned by him, they will probably not resist his orders, but it is hard to say for a powerful guy like Wansh. Especially since Wansh still has some hatred with him. If he cannot completely subdue it before summoning it, it will definitely turn against him when he summons it through spiritual art in the future. At that time, it will not only be unable to help fight the enemy, but also become a threat to him. Wansh is the most powerful snake in this Longdi cave, below the 4 immortals. Apart from this, he can't find a more suitable target to summon. Therefore, he must completely subdue Wansh as soon as possible, so that it will be convenient to summon it in the future. Then, he shouted loudly to the snakes, "Long time no see, why don't we play the game of psychic summoning again today?" Hearing this, the snakes stopped swimming, slowly turned around, stared at Qishuang, and said with murderous intent, "Boy, don't think that you can tease me at will, just because you are protected by a few adults. If you really push me into a corner, I will eat you alive even if I risk being killed by a few adults." At this time, a ball of anger slowly rose in its heart, slowly eroding its reason. Qishuang pretended to be disdainful and waved his hand and said, "You want to eat me? I think I'd better wait for the next life. Why don't you let me taste the snake soup first?" As he said that, he smacked his lips, looked the snakes up and down, and swallowed his saliva. Goo. Although there was a distance between the two sides, the hearing of snakes was not bad, so the snakes could clearly hear the sound of him swallowing saliva. Combined with his last words and the eyes that kept looking at him, Wansh immediately understood what the other party was planning. This bastard actually wanted to eat him. But he was the king of all snakes, and he had always eaten others, never met a master who wanted to eat him. Qishuang's words undoubtedly pissed him off completely. "Asshole, I'm not done with you today," Wansh shouted angrily, quickly coiled up the snake formation, and then suddenly bounced, like a purple lightning, like a collapsed mountain, accompanied by a whistling wind, and rushed straight to the young man opposite. He took the bait. Looking at the Wansh rushing towards him, Qishuang couldn't help but reveal a hint of pride. He was not afraid that Wansh would fight with him, but was afraid that Wansh would have no intention of fighting, and would not want to pay attention to him at all. After all, he was also a good person who was reasonable. It was really unreasonable to beat up Wansh for no reason. It was better to let Wansh come up and ask for a fight, which was more in line with his style of doing things. Ice released chakra mode then. He put his palms together and immediately stimulated the chakra of his whole body, which was output from various meridian points, forming a layer of white light on the body surface. The whole person seemed to be shrouded in a layer of white gauze. He was looking forward to fighting with the snakes. Because this battle, in addition to the intention of suppressing the opponent and facilitating the spiritual drive in the future, also tested the ideas that he had accumulated in the past few years. During the days of hard training in the Langdi cave, in addition to practicing fairy arts, he did not give up his ice release training. The process of transforming various ninjutsu into fairy arts has allowed him to further sublimate his own techniques and achieved very rich results. He felt that he had made great progress, but it was still difficult to judge to what extent. Although he often practiced with the 3 snake princesses, it was just practice after all, and he did not use any ruthless hands, and he did not dare to use any ruthless hands. In addition, the 3 snake princesses were always at ease in the face of his offensive, so he could not use them as a standard to judge his actual level. As for Zanaya, who had fought with him once before, he was subdued in one blow because he was too weak, and he was attacked by himself. He also couldn't judge his own strength level. The current Wansh was very suitable for testing his own level. Boom. Wansh attacked furiously and directly hit him. Because of its huge size, lightning speed and the narrow terrain of the tunnel, Qishuang had no way to avoid it, and was hit directly. Fortunately, he had a chakra coat made of semi-fluid ice to protect himself. Wansh's furious attack only knocked him away, and didn't really hurt him at all. Boom. Under the impact of Wansh, he was like a white cannonball, crashing through a stone wall, and then shooting into a cave. Then he hit the rock wall of the cave, knocking out a large pit several meters deep. His body was embedded in the rock wall, and then he completely stopped. At the same time, Wansh, who knocked Qishuang away with one blow, did not feel any happiness. Because when it hit the opponent, a thick layer of ice formed on the part of its head that was in direct contact with it. It was a huge body, so being frozen by such a small piece of ice had no effect. If it were an ordinary person, I'm afraid half of his body would be frozen immediately. Then, it rubbed its head against the rock wall next to it in annoyance, and then it got rid of the ice attached to it. Although such a small layer of ice did not affect its activities, the ice continued to release a stream of icy air into its head. This was not a good thing for it, because snakes are afraid of cold. As their body temperature drops, their body functions will drop significantly, and their brains will become more and more sluggish. Therefore, they, the snake clan, don't like to fight with ice escape ninjas, especially those who are powerful to a certain extent. On the other side, Qishuang quickly climbed out of the rock wall, after taking 2 breaths. Although he was protected by the chakra coat, the fierce impact of the snake still made him feel a little overwhelmed. He still felt a dull pain in his chest. Then, he proudly shouted to the purple snake outside, "Wansh, how does my cold energy taste?" Chapter 363 Showdown. Chakra mode has various characteristics due to the different chakra properties used. In addition to its own strong defensive ability, it also has strong offensive ability. It is a nearly perfect technique that combines offense and defense. For example, Raikage lightning release chakra mode. Because of the lightning release, his chakra coat has the characteristics of electric shock paralysis. Even if he stands there motionless, the high voltage current alone is enough to make people dare not approach or touch him casually. Another example is Four-tailed Old Purple. His melting release chakra mode has the effect of high temperature burning because of the melting release. And Nana Frost's ice release chakra mode has the effect of freezing the target and cold air invasion because of the ice release chakra. Therefore, even if Nana Frost's physical ability is not outstanding, he can also obtain extremely strong close combat ability because of this technique. It does not require too much skill, and a punch can freeze the opponent's body and erode the opponent's muscles with cold air, causing the effect of slowing down the action. The opponent would not be able to start a fight with him because of his extremely cold ice. Therefore, since the day he mastered this technique, there are only a few people in the entire ninja world who are qualified to fight with him in close combat. If the snake was not so huge and the contact time was too short, the touch just now would be enough to leave a deep lesson for it. Outside the cave, the snake slowly drilled him from the hole that Qishuang had just broken. It was a little surprised to see the young man hanging on the stone wall opposite unharmed. With its weight and rapid speed, the force of the collision just now could almost knock down a small mountain. But even after being hit by such a terrifying force, the boy was still, as if nothing had happened, which was really astonishing. This also means that the powerful strength that it is proud of is probably useless in front of the opponent. It suddenly felt that it had underestimated this young man. Because of the impression it had left earlier, it thought that this young man was just a rogue who could only play tricks. So after being angered by such an ant, it chose to kill him regardless of everything. Now, after seeing that the other party has extraordinary abilities, it can't help but put away the underestimation in its heart. Even the terrifying murderous intent just now was slowly restrained by it. This is the treatment that the strong deserve. It can bare its fangs to the weak without scruples, but it will not play with the strong at will. No one will think that their life is long, and no one likes to provoke a strong enemy for no reason. Especially now, it has realized that it is very likely that it can't do anything to the other party. Then, it said to Qishuang with confidence, "I'm in a good mood today, so I will mercifully let you go. If there is a next time, there will be no such cheap thing." After that, it turned around and prepared to leave. Seeing that the 10,000 snakes suddenly stopped fighting, Qishuang was dumbfounded. He had originally hoped to fight with them to test his ability and then completely calm them down so that he could summon them in the future. Now, the 10,000 snakes' refusal to cooperate made him feel troubled. Helplessly, he had to call the 10,000 snakes and shouted, "Don't leave yet." Hearing this, the 10,000 snakes turned around in surprise and said impatiently, "Boy, don't push your luck. My patience is very limited." Qishuang slowly walked down the rock wall to the ground and said, "The white snake immortal once promised me that, as long as I help it complete a task, it will grant me the spiritual contract of the snake clan. In the future, I will have to summon you to help, so." He didn't say anything else. I believe that with the wisdom of the 10,000 snakes, they should be able to understand what he meant. He. Wanch laughed sinisterly a few times, looked at Qishuang deeply and said, "You want to command me? It's not impossible to negotiate, but what price are you prepared to pay?" Qishuang hugged his arms tightly and said with interest, "Then what do you want? As long as the conditions are not too excessive, he can consider agreeing." The light blue eyes rolled around, as if thinking about something. Wanch thought for a while and said, "Orochimaru has an agreement with me. Every time he summons me for help, he will give me 100 living sacrifices as a reward. As for you, give me 120. Although it no longer intends to pursue the past and the things just now, it does not mean that it has forgotten everything. Therefore, it added another 20 to the amount of reward it proposed to Qishuang. Only in this way can it completely eliminate its unhappiness. Hearing this, Qishuang's eyelids couldn't help but jump. The so-called living sacrifice should refer to living people, and Wanch's purpose of asking for them is certainly not for fun, but obviously for a feast. Although he knew that the big snakes in Langdi Cave had the habit of eating people, it was hard for him to accept that Wansh had exposed them so nakedly and exchanged them like livestock. Then, he said to Wansh coldly, "What if I don't give any? Then don't expect me to help you." Wansh looked at him sarcastically and said, "Maybe, I will." It didn't say anything else, but the meaning was clear. Without reward, it would not only not help, but also turn against its side. After a long breath of foul air, Qishuang raised his head and sighed. "In this case, there is nothing to talk about. I think it's more convenient for me to use my fists to make you obedient." Wansh's appetite was too big. If it was just one or two, he might be able to get a few death row prisoners to satisfy the other party, but Wansh asked for 120, which was too much. What's more, Wansh still had to use them to satisfy his appetite. He already disliked such cruel and unjust behavior, and he asked for so much at once. He had no desire to continue discussing with him, because he was also a human being. Killing people was killing people, but he didn't want to treat people like livestock and use them to bargain with the 10,000 snakes. That was disrespectful to himself. After hearing his words, the 10,000 snakes quickly coiled up the snake formation and said solemnly, "Do you really want to fight with me?" If possible, it was really reluctant to fight such a strong enemy. The defense of the chakra coat on the opponent's body was too strong, and it was not sure to break it. This meant that it would not only be difficult to hurt the opponent, but it would be injured by the opponent. The result was that there was no benefit at all, but it was just beaten unilaterally. It was not a fool, so it was naturally unwilling to engage in such a meaningless battle. Helplessly, it had to quickly change the words. If you think 120 are too many, I can also mercifully give you a discount. Well, then 80. This is a treatment that even Orochimaru doesn't have. You should feel content, young man." As it said that, it nodded and gave Qishuang a look that said, "You've earned it." Chapter 364, Fierce Snake. Qishuang shook his head, gathering chakra in his right hand, and said, "I'm not Orochimaru. I'm not as cold-blooded as him. I will not take so many living sacrifices to satisfy your appetite. I will use these hands to make you completely convinced and serve me." As he said that, he saw cold air lingering in his hands, and ice cubes quickly condensed and grew larger. In the blink of an eye, a 5-meter wide ice shuriken took shape in his hands. Whoosh! Without giving Wansh a chance to bargain, Qishuang immediately threw the giant ice shuriken out. It was like a rotating windmill, with a whirring sound, drawing an arc in the air, and falling straight towards Wansh's head. At this point, Wansh had no choice. It had its bottom line. How could the king of Wansh work for nothing? You have to know that a mere 100 living sacrifices are barely enough for it to have a meal. It thinks that the discount of 80 is already very sincere. Since the negotiation cannot be reached, it can only speak with strength. Then, it raised its tail and lashed at the ice shuriken flying overhead. Bang! With a crisp sound, the giant shuriken was shattered into pieces by its thick tail whip before it landed on its head, breaking into ice slag all over the sky. "It's not over yet," Qishuang shouted, controlling the chakra reserved in the broken ice to make it undergo new changes. He knew early on that the shuriken would not cause any trouble to the 10,000 snakes, so when he cast the spell, he reserved a portion of chakra in it, ready to launch a second attack at any time. Ice release, needle rain technique. Then, the ice slag that was shattered by the 10,000 snakes quickly turned into half-foot long ice needles, and then turned into a rain of ice needles, shooting at its head and face. Seeing this, the 10,000 snakes quickly closed their eyes and retracted their heads into the snake formation. Such an attack was too intensive, and it could not solve it with a tail whip like it did just now, and the distance was too close, so it could not avoid it, and it could only choose to resist it with its body. Moreover, it had enough confidence in its strong body. Because such an intensive attack generally does not have too strong direct killing power, it believed that this technique of sacrificing strength in exchange for range would never cause it any serious trouble. Then, it heard a series of ding-dong sounds coming from its body. It felt like it was stung by a group of large bees, and there was a slight stinging pain in various parts of its body. It knew that it was the ice needles that pierced its scales and pierced its flesh, but that was all. Its guess was correct. Those ice needles only pierced its scales and barely pierced the skin below, and did not cause any substantial serious damage. However, there was one thing it did not expect. In addition to the slight stinging, there were also waves of icy cold air that it hated, which was spreading from the stinging area to the surroundings. When the needle rain stopped, the icy air had penetrated its whole body, and its body temperature dropped slightly. As its body temperature dropped, it felt that its muscles became loose, and its condition was obviously not as good as before. It raised its head, shook its head, and shook off most of the ice needles stuck in its body, and roared loudly, "I hate you guys who use ice escape." Then, it immediately rushed towards Qishuang, who took advantage of the situation. Although it was a little afraid of the layer of chakra on its body, it did not mean that it was really afraid, and could not touch it at all. It just didn't like the feeling of cooling down, and didn't want to touch it. Now, it has made up its mind to teach this kid an unforgettable lesson. Therefore, it was determined to kill him at the risk of a significant drop in temperature. Water escape, water dragon bullet technique. Qishuang quickly formed a seal, and transformed the chakra into the nature of water. Immediately, a huge column of water surged from the ground behind him. After the water column rushed up to the sky, its top changed into a dragon shape, and swooped down towards the oncoming snakes. "Get out of here!" The snakes shouted angrily, and rushed towards the water dragon without dodging. With its physical fitness, this level of water escape really made it not interested in dodging. Wow. Under the huge body of the snakes, which was more than 50 meters long, Qishuang's water dragon, which was only more than 10 meters long, seemed a little petty and fragile. In just a moment, the mighty water dragon was smashed into a sky full of water. At the same time, Qishuang, who was following behind the water dragon, seized the opportunity and once again controlled the chakra reserved in the water dragon when the water dragon was smashed by the snakes, and launched a new technique. Ice escape. Ice sealing technique smashed the dragon head to pieces, and the snakes, who were about to further annihilate the dragon body, immediately noticed something was wrong. Unfortunately, it was too late. The broken body of the water dragon turned into water splashes that surrounded it, and then the water splashes, and the remaining body of the water dragon condensed into ice. It just reacted when its head was covered by ice crystals. The ice crystals condensed very quickly, and in the blink of an eye, they spread along its neck and spread downwards. Qishuang couldn't help but smile proudly when he saw it. If he used ice escape to directly condense an ice dragon to attack the opponent, it would not be a problem with his current ability. But compared with the water flow, ice is too hard. Although the ice dragon is more lethal than the water dragon, as long as the snake is not stupid, it will never stupidly crash into it. Therefore, he first used the water dragon to confuse the opponent and make him despise it, and then use the body of the water dragon to perform ice escape, so that he could use the ice sealing technique to freeze the snake in one fell swoop. Just when he thought he had won, Wansh raised its unfrozen front body and slammed it to the ground. But with a crisp sound, the ice crystals covering its head were immediately smashed to pieces. Wansh escaped. "It seems that I underestimated you." Qishuang was shocked. With the same moves, Zenaya was defeated by him without any resistance, but Wansh was able to break his ice in time. The difference between the two is huge. On the other side, after suffering a loss, Wansh no longer dared to rush forward. After thinking quickly, it swept the ground with its long tail, and there was a burst of flying sand and rocks, smoke, and dust, and nothing could be seen in the already dim cave. Wansh's huge snake body completely disappeared from Qishuang's sight. Want to play a sneak attack? Seeing this scene, Qishuang immediately guessed the other party's mind. Most snakes don't have limbs, so they are not good at using ninjutsu. Apart from some unique skills, they mostly rely on their strong physique to win the battle. To put it simply, they are better at close combat, and not good at long-range attacks. In order to get close to him unexpectedly, and launch an offensive to reduce the risk of being attacked, the snakes created such a sandstorm. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 365 Test. Just as Qishuang was on guard, there was a whirring sound behind him. No need to guess, it must be the 10,000 snakes that attacked him. He quickly dodged to the side, trying to avoid the attack. Unfortunately, the 10,000 snakes were too big. If they didn't move, it would be fine. But if they moved, the world would be turned upside down. Qishuang saw a huge black shadow approaching rapidly from the other side of the sand curtain, like a collapsing mountain, leaving him no chance to dodge. Boom. The black shadow passed through the sand curtain and hit him directly. He felt like he was hit by a wall. The heavy force made it impossible for people to have the courage to resist. Although his body had been greatly improved after being baptized by natural energy that was only compared to humans. If compared with giants like the 10,000 snakes, even if his body functions were strengthened 10 times or even 100 times, it would not be possible to compare with these monsters. Then, he was swept away by the irresistible strange force. At the same time, at the other end of the sand curtain, in the direction where Qishuang flew out, Wansh quietly opened its bloody mouth. It used its more than 50-meter long snake body to set up a front and back attack. And by estimating Qishuang's flight trajectory, it arranged its head in advance on the opponent's trajectory. Then it used its tail to knock it away and slammed it into its mouth, ready to kill it with one blow. Now, it has come to the last moment. Although the chakra coat on the opponent's body has a strong defensive power and has previously withstood its impact, the power of that attack was not concentrated, and most of the power was leaked onto the rock wall. This time, it was ready to break the surface with a point and use its own tyrannical power to completely kill the little ghost. At the same time, Qishuang also found the black shadow behind him getting closer and closer. Unfortunately, it was too late. But in the blink of an eye, he passed through the sand curtain and flew to the front of the black shadow. Until then, he finally saw clearly that it was a huge mouth that had been opened, so big that it seemed to be able to swallow an elephant. Especially the upper and lower jaws, 4 long fangs, like sharp spears, which made people feel terrified. Go to hell, arrogant guy. Wansh screamed, slightly adjusted the lower jaw, and aligned the fang on the right side of the lower jaw with the fang on the right side of the upper jaw, and then closed the upper and lower jaws at the moment when Qishuang shot into its mouth. Ding. There was a sound of metal and stone hitting each other, and the upper and lower fangs on the right side of Wansh bit Qishuang's body tightly. Unfortunately, the scene of disemboweling the opponent as it expected did not appear. Both fangs were blocked by the layer of pale white glow on the opponent's body surface, and could not go in any further. The defensive ability of that layer of chakra coat has far exceeded its expectations. It was helpless. At this time, Qishuang, who was bitten by the fangs of Wansh, finally breathed a sigh of relief after feeling the huge pressure from the outside of the body surface, and the chakra coat still stubbornly supported it. The defensive ability of the chakra mode really did not disappoint him. Before being bitten by the snakes, he had already prepared to use a substitute to escape. He only took the risk of being bitten by the snakes to test the defensive ability of the chakra mode. Although there is a risk of being bitten through with the defensive ability of the chakra mode, even if it is bitten through by the snakes, it is impossible to be bitten through in an instant. The defensive ability of the chakra mode is not made of paper after all. You know, the 3rd generation Reikage won the title of the strongest shield by relying on the lightning release chakra mode. He also relied on this technique to fight the 8 tails in a melee battle, and finally exhausted the 8 tails. Compared with his ice release chakra, the lightning release chakra is better at attacking and not good at defending. In comparison, his ice release chakra mode is obviously more defensive. As for the physical strength of the snakes, they are at the same level as the 8 tails. As for who is stronger, it is impossible to compare, but the difference should not be too big. The 3rd generation Reikage can use the chakra mode to fight the 8 tails in a melee, and he can also use the chakra mode to fight the snakes in a melee. This was also the fundamental reason why he dared to take the risk and resist the bite of the snake. Then, after the test, he shouted, "Your performance is over. Now it's my turn." Ice release. Ice sealing technique. Then, he mobilized his chakra to freeze himself. The chakra on his body quickly condensed into ice, and in the blink of an eye, he completely sealed himself in the ice. Not only that, the ice crystals on his body also spread along the two fangs of the snake biting him and spread to his upper and lower jaws. Feeling the cold air coming from his two fangs, the snake quickly loosened his fangs, shook his head, and immediately broke the ice crystals condensed on his fangs and spit out the ice that he couldn't bite. At the same time, after being spit out by the snake, Qishuang revoked the chakra mode, and with the help of the solidification and protection of the ice, he was not disturbed by external objects, and quickly entered a mental state of forgetting both the self and the world. Concentrate your attention, and begin to absorb the natural energy around you. Seeing the ice that he had spit out, and was freezing a person, Wansh couldn't help but feel a bit bad. Boom. The ice wrapped around Qishuang hit a rock wall. The ice was intact, but the rock wall was hit with a deep dent. Then the big ice rolled down the rock wall to the ground. But even with such violent fluctuations in the outside world, it still did not interrupt Qishuang's process of absorbing natural energy. After a long period of practice, he has been able to block external interference to the maximum extent, so that he can keep himself in a state of forgetting the world without interruption, focusing on absorbing natural energy, and keeping it balanced with his own chakra. In addition, with the external ice layer wrapped around him, his overall movement is completely fixed. As long as there is no direct interference from external forces, he will not take this level of impact seriously at all, and it is impossible to interrupt his process of absorbing natural energy. At the same time, after realizing that something was wrong, Wansh immediately pounced over. The sandstorm that it had stirred up earlier had slowly stopped, and it saw the ice rolling down the rock wall at a glance. Then, it raised its snake tail high and slapped the ice under the rock wall. Boom. With a deafening roar, Wansh swept the ice that froze Qishuang with its ferocious tail whip. Then, there was another creaking sound of breaking. On the ice, a series of fine cracks spread out from under Wansh's tail. In an instant, the cracks spread all over the ice, and then it exploded into pieces with a bang, shooting in all directions. Wansh did not dodge, and continued to press down with its huge tail at the figure in the ice. At the moment, when the ice exploded, a layer of blue eyeshadow appeared on Qishuang's eyelids, and a pair of pointed horns grew on his head. Suddenly I found that the next door Fate twins had been out of update for half a month. What a surprise. I remember that the book seemed to be on the shelves at about the same time as mine, and its initial performance was much better than mine, but it was abandoned. Could it be that the plot was broken later? Have you seen it? Can you tell me about it? Chapter 366 Surrender. At the critical moment, Qishuang completed the immortal transformation and finally entered the immortal mode. Then, he quickly raised his arms, crossed them above his head, and blocked Wansh's tail whip. He felt his arms sink, and a huge force pressed down along his arms. Then, the ground under his feet loosened, and his whole body was hit straight down like a wooden stake. Wansh's tail whip hit the ground unstoppably, and after a rumble, there was no trace of Qishuang on the ground. Despite such a victory, Wansh was not happy at all, because just now, when its tail hit the opponent, it clearly felt a sudden burst of extremely strong power from the opponent, and tried to block its attack. If it weren't for the ground being unable to withstand its power, the man would not have been hit into the ground by it. In other words, although it hit the opponent, a large part of its power was offset, and its attack did not have much effect. Not only that, until its tail completely fell to the ground and its castration was exhausted, the opponent's power did not decrease at all. However, the direction of the force has changed. The opponent is holding its tail tightly, and it seems that he doesn't want it to get away. Wansh tried to pull its tail, but found that the opponent's strength was not much weaker than its own. Its tail seemed to be nailed to the ground, and could not be pulled at all. This kid. How can he suddenly have such great strength? It was confused. Suddenly, a flash of inspiration came to its mind, and it recalled the moment when it broke the ice just now. It saw the blue mask on the young face, and the two sharp horns on the top of the head. Could it be? At this moment, it suddenly felt that a strong and slightly familiar force burst out from the place where its tail was held. It was Qishuang who grabbed Wansh's tail with both hands and launched the fairy art. Fairy art ice escape eternal ice coffin. The power of fairy art can turn decay into magic. Any art will have a qualitative leap after being strengthened by fairy art. And this eternal ice coffin is the product of the sublimation of ice sealing art. The ice sealing technique can create his hardest ice, giving the opponent the strongest restrictive ability. Now, after being transformed into a fairy technique, the hardness of the ice has risen by several levels, far exceeding Qishuang's own imagination. Therefore, he gave it the name of Eternity. Once the opponent is sealed in it, he will be imprisoned in it forever, with no possibility of escape. Then, he saw that under his palm, where the tail of the 10,000 snakes touched, a layer of crystal clear ice crystal spread rapidly around. In addition to the change in the hardness of the ice, the speed of ice condensation has increased by more than 10 times. The 10,000 snakes, who just realized that something was wrong, was about to burst out with all his strength and pull out his tail, and immediately felt a terrifying cold air surging through his body. At the same time, there was a layer of crystal clear ice crystal spreading upward from his tail, freezing half of his body in an instant. Fairy technique? Seeing this freezing effect that was obviously countless times stronger than before, the 10,000 snakes screamed, and finally confirmed that the opponent must have entered the state of fairy. Seeing that it was about to be completely frozen, it opened its mouth, and then saw another purple snake scurrying out of its mouth. That was its unique shelling technique, which could help it get out of trouble and harm by shedding its shell. Qishuang, who thought he had completely frozen the 10,000 snakes, got out of the ground, only to find that there was only a 10,000 snakes slough in the ice. The 10,000 snakes were entrenched at the other end of the cave, but they looked a little nervous, so they didn't dare to attack rashly. Did Orochimaru teach you this? He pointed to the snake slough in the ice, and asked the 10,000 snakes in surprise. I still remember that Orochimaru also got out of trouble and harm by shedding his shell, but Orochimaru didn't have a shell, and what he shed was his old body. On the other side, Manch was not happy to hear the boss's words and said dissatisfiedly, "What do you mean he taught me? It's obvious that he imitated my shell shedding technique, and then developed his own unique substitute technique." Qishuang was slightly stunned, and then thought about it for a while before nodding. Well, it's more likely that he learned from you. Manch is at least hundreds of years old, and shedding is its instinct. If it evolves a unique ability to shed its shell and escape on this basis, it is very likely. And Orochimaru's unique substitute technique is very similar to shedding, but he himself is a human, and has no shell to shed. He would never come up with such a substitute technique similar to shedding for no reason. In addition, Orochimaru's age is not even a fraction of Manch's. I'm afraid that Manch had this ability to shed his shell and escape before Orochimaru was born. Therefore, Orochimaru is likely to be inspired by Manch and then developed his later unique substitute technique. Then, Qishuang asked Wanch again, "Why, you don't want to fight anymore? I've just started." Looking at his two light blue horns, Wanch shook his head and said, "Fighting with an immortal, I lose more than I win. It's meaningless to continue fighting. This uncle recognizes your strength, young man. You are qualified to summon this uncle." This guy in front of him was a bit difficult to deal with, and after becoming an immortal, his strength has increased by several levels. Wanch thought he had no chance of winning, so of course he didn't want to fight anymore. Boring. Seeing that it had lost its fighting spirit, Qishuang curled his lips helplessly. He was having fun, and was ready to try the power of the immortal, but he didn't expect Wanch to not want to fight anymore. It was really disappointing. Then, he touched his horns, and said to the purple snake, "I'm not Orochimaru. I don't have so many living sacrifices to satisfy your appetite. In the future, I don't want to hear you ask for living sacrifices again." No. Wanch shook his head again and again, and said, "Even if you are an immortal from Longdi Cave, you can't order me to work for you for nothing." The reason why it chose to stop the war was not only because of the opponent's strength, but also because of its identity as an immortal from Longdi Cave. Although Qishuang is not a snake, Qishuang practices the immortal arts of Longdi Cave, and is considered half an immortal of Longdi Cave, with a noble status. He is also an ally of the same camp, so he can gain the respect or of many snakes. This naturally includes Wanch. If it were an immortal from other places, it would not be interested in dealing with him. "What do you want?" Qishuang raised his eyebrows and asked impatiently. The 10,000 snakes looked at him cautiously and said slowly, "As the king of 10,000 snakes, I represent Landi Cave and the four immortals. You can't be so rude. At least give me a living sacrifice every time." I wanted to show the power of the immortal art, but as I wrote, I couldn't continue. Because the two sides don't have such a deep hatred, there's no need to fight to the death. Speechless. Chapter 367 Planning. 1. Qishuang thought about it and finally nodded helplessly. If he really didn't give any, he might not be able to use Wansh at all. Even if he forced it to surrender now, it would still disobey orders during the battle. Moreover, as Wansh said, it represented Landi Cave and the four immortals. In any case, Qishuang had to give the king of Wansh some face, otherwise it would be very troublesome. Because he still had a lot of things to do and needed the help of several immortals. "Well, next time you summon me, don't forget to prepare sacrifices for me." Wansh turned and left, after giving another thought. When the purple snake disappeared at the end of the tunnel, Qishuang lifted the immortal mode and walked back along the way. In the hidden mist village, Afeni spent a little energy to control King in the different space with illusion, and then began to think about the next move. He glanced at the boy sitting in the office chair and murmured, "Today, I'm only temporarily using the title of Mizukage to scare those old guys, but they must have some doubts. Besides, illusion control is not as direct and natural as the secret technique of the mind after all. I'm afraid that Yagira's appearance will not be concealed for more than 3 days. Once the situation of Mizukage being controlled by him with illusion is exposed, the entire Kirigakure will be his enemy. By then, if the people of Kirigakure are a little more ruthless and choose to abolish the Mizukage directly, Yagira in his hand will be no different from an ordinary Jinkriki. Then, without the Mizukage card, the people of Kirigakure can attack him without any scruples. He will face the encirclement and suppression of the whole village. Even after several years of hard training, even if he thinks he is at the top of the world, Afeni dare not say that he can fight the power of the whole village alone. Especially this is Kirigakure, one of the 5 major ninja villages. Even if there is another Three Tails Jinkriki, it will only last a little longer. Being expelled from the country is his final outcome. Therefore, he needs allies. An ally who can help him continue to rule the Kirigakure village, even if the fact that he used illusion to control the 4th Mizukage is exposed. Thinking of this, a name emerged in Afeni's heart. The Kirigakure clan. Although he has not set foot in Kirigakure in person in recent years, he has never relaxed his intelligence gathering on Kirigakure. Unlike Konoha, which is full of talents and has many powerful families, Kirigakure has only 6 pillar families, but after many turmoil and purges, there are only 3 families left. Under the 3 families, countless small families are commanded, thus building the framework of the entire Kirigakure. As for the rest of the non-family population, although they are large, they are just a pile of loose sand after all. As long as the 3 families are stabilized, the situation of the entire Kirigakure will not be too chaotic. In other words, if he uses these 3 families as allies, even if the fact that he used illusion to control the Mizukage is exposed, they will help cover it up and control the news within a certain range. And as long as the fact that he controls the Mizukage is not completely exposed to the public, but only circulated in a small range, even if there are different voices at the bottom of Kirigakure, as long as the upper level is consistent, they will deny it. Then, no matter how much the people below doubt, as long as there is no evidence, suspicion is only suspicion after all, and it is impossible to threaten Yagira's position of Mizukage. However, my goal is not to rule Kirigakure, but to repay the pain they inflicted on me 1,000 times. A fierce murderous intent flashed in Afeni's one eye. Looking for allies is just to help himself stabilize the situation, so as not to be besieged by the entire Kirigakure village after being exposed. But for revenge, he can't seriously hide behind Yagira to be a Mizukage. Therefore, he can't pull all 3 major families into his camp, dividing Kirigakure, creating conflicts between various groups, and letting Kirigakure intensify internal friction. This is the result he wants. Therefore, he can only choose one family to win over, and use this family to check and balance the other 2 families to achieve his goal. Among the three families, the Terumi family is relatively the weakest, and it is difficult to meet the requirements of checking and balancing the other two families, so he is directly excluded. The remaining Hoshigaki family is not much different from the Kido family, but because the second generation of Kirigakure Mizukage comes from Kido, the Kido family is pushed to the peak of the first family. But now it has fallen. Also because of the former possession, the Hazuki clan valued the position of Mizukage more than the other clans in Kirigakure, and they were eager to regain control of Kirigakure. That's why they fought fiercely in the battle for the fourth Mizukage. Unfortunately, the three-tailed Jinchuriki of this generation was able to completely control the power of the tailed beast, causing them to fail. Thinking of this, Afei glanced at Yagura, who was sitting in the office chair, and said playfully, "Speaking of which, I have to thank Yagura for fighting 1 against 7. If it weren't for Uchiha Itachi's Manjaki Sharingan that seriously injured Yagura, he would have no chance to control Yagura with illusion. Itachi helped him a lot unintentionally." Then, he muttered to himself, "The Hazuki clan covets the position of Mizukage, but no one in their clan can defeat Yagura. If I use the position of Mizukage as a bargaining chip, I should be able to win them over." As for the Hoshigaki clan, he didn't know much. He only knew that it was a subhuman race in Kirigakure, and it was different from ordinary people. Because the situation was unclear, he chose the Hazuki clan, which seemed easier to attack. Time is running out. Let's go talk to the Hazuki clan tonight. After looking at the sky, that was getting darker and darker outside the window, Afei made up his mind. He walked up to Yagura, put his hand on Yagura's shoulder, and then activated the ability of his right eye. I saw a vortex of emptiness opened outside his mask, and Yagura's body was instantly sucked in like light smoke. He wanted to take Yagura with him. Although the disappearance of the Mizukage would arouse suspicion from others, he had no choice. The illusion he cast on Yagura, although Yagura himself could not solve it, if a third person intervened, it would be easily solved. Therefore, he could not leave Yagura here alone. In the residence of the Terumi clan, a pretty girl in a blue skirt was lying on the windowsill, playing with an ice sculpture snow lotus in her hand. It's been almost 3 years, and that bastard hasn't come back yet. Could he have died outside? Staring at the snow lotus in her hand, the girl sighed helplessly. That was Mei Terumi, who had been waiting for Nanashi's return. It must be said that time is the best medicine in the world. When Nanashi didn't come back in the first year, she was still very disappointed, but in the second year, the disappointment faded a lot. Now, after the third year, she can face this fact calmly, even if it is the worst result. Because she knows that no matter whether it is hysteria or sadness, it is impossible to change the reality with her will and let Nanashi appear in front of her. All she can do is to shift her attention to the chakra fusion experiment instead of wasting time with sighs. Because even revenge requires strength. She has made the worst plan. Illusion control is easy for outsiders to see, and the person who is hit is like a wooden man. It is not as perfect as the control of the secret technique of the mind. In order for Obito to control Yagura for several years without leaking any flaws, he must need someone to help conceal it and choose to turn a blind eye. Of course, this is how I designed it. Everyone just take a look. Don't take it too seriously. Chapter 368 Cooperation, Part 1. On the other side, Afei easily sneaked into the residence of the leader of the Hazuki clan with the spatial ability of his Manjaki Sharingan. After a search, he found the leader of the Hazuki clan, Hazuki Masamune, in the study. Hazuki Masamune, who was reading in the study, suddenly found an abnormal fluctuation in the room. Not far from his desk, a vortex of void slowly expanded. Then, a man in black clothes and wearing an orange one-eyed mask walked out of the vortex. Without much thought, Hazuki Masamune immediately put down the book in his hand, made a gun shape with his hands, and pointed his index finger at the stranger who suddenly appeared. "Wait a minute, it's one of us," Afei hurriedly said. Hazuki Masamune sneered and said, "I never remember seeing one of us like you. Especially one of us who broke into someone else's study without permission. Water style, water gun technique." As soon as he finished speaking, he gathered chakra in his hands, transformed it into 2 compressed water bullets, and shot out from the tip of his index finger. 2 water bullets were aimed at Afei's head and heart respectively, piercing his body instantly, and finally hitting the wall behind him, leaving 2 deep holes. Although the water bullets hit the opponent's vital points, he did not feel happy at all, because he saw that the 2 water bullets just now seemed to hit an illusion, and had no effect on the man in front of him. Illusion? Thinking of this possibility, he immediately made a hand seal, temporarily stopped the flow of chakra in his body, and shouted softly, "Remove." After briefly stopping the flow of chakra, he reorganized his chakra flow, and tried to remove the illusion on himself. However, everything in front of him still did not change. Afei pulled a chair from the desk and sat down, smiling and said to him, "Don't waste your time. I didn't use an illusion on you. You don't have to be so nervous. I have no ill intentions. I'm an ally who came to help your Hazuki clan obtain the position of Mizukage." Hearing this last sentence, Hazuki Masamune, who was originally planning to make another attempt, immediately withdrew the chakra in his hand. "You mean the position of Mizukage?" he asked again in disbelief. "Yes, it's the position of Mizukage." Seeing the target take the bait, Afei's mouth corners lifted up involuntarily under the mask. At the same time, a burst of hurried footsteps came from outside the study. A group of guards of the Hazuki clan blocked the door. They noticed the chakra fluctuations caused by the 2 water gun techniques just now. "Master Clan Leader, what happened?" the leading guard shouted outside the door. Hazuki Masamune, who was about to ask for clarification, was suddenly interrupted by the guards, and couldn't help feeling unhappy. He took 2 steps at a time, opened the door, and said to everyone impatiently, "It's okay, it's okay. You all go down. I'm discussing important matters with a guest. You are not allowed to disturb me again." Seeing that the clan leader was safe and sound, the guards breathed a sigh of relief. Then they all said yes and slowly withdrew. Then, Hazuki Masamune carefully scanned the surroundings again, and then closed the door again. After returning to his seat at the desk, he looked at the one-eyed masked man again and asked tentatively, "I heard that the 4th Hokage went to chase a dangerous guy today, but he didn't catch him, and suffered a lot of losses. And when he returned to the village, there was a friend wearing a mask by his side. I guess that person is you?" Although he did not go to welcome the return of the Mizukage today, it is impossible for the Hazuki family to be unaware of such a big thing. Combined with the description of the people below, he felt that the one-eyed masked man in front of him was very similar to the friend next to the 4th Hokage. The 2 should be the same person. "You guessed right, it's me." Afei nodded and said, "You can call me Afei. But aren't you a friend of the 4th Hokage? How could you help my Hazuki family seize the position of Mizukage?" Masamune Hazuki was confused. He was very suspicious of the other party's motives, but he was unwilling to miss any opportunity to obtain the position of Mizukage. Therefore, even though he knew it was a bit unreliable, he decided to listen to how the other party explained. The so-called friend is just an excuse to fool those old guys. Afei shook his head and said, "I have nothing to do with the 4th Mizukage of your village. So, I can help your Hazuki clan get the position of Mizukage without any scruples." Hearing this, Masamune Hazuki was still puzzled and asked, "Since you have nothing to do with the 4th generation, why did you save him?" According to the report from the people below, the 4th generation was seriously injured, and it was the guy in front of him who claimed to be a friend who helped him, which enabled the 4th generation to return safely. "I have never helped him, I'm just helping myself," Afei said meaningfully, looking at the Hazuki clan leader in front of him. Masamune Hazuki, who didn't understand, asked, "Then why should I believe that you can help our Hazuki clan get the position of Mizukage?" At the moment, compared to the other party's unpredictable motives, he wanted to know more about what method the other party had to give the position of Mizukage to the Kizuna clan. "Show me my trump card." Under the mask, Afei showed a smug smile. After that, he stood up and saw a void vortex appear in front of the right eye socket of the mask again. And then a green figure was teleported out of the vortex. Space-time ritual. Seeing the whirlpool again, Masamune Kizuki confirmed the type of Afei's ability. Because only the space-time technique has the ability to teleport objects. At the same time, he finally understood why his 2 previous water bullets penetrated the opponent's body, but had no effect. Because the water bullet and the opponent's body are not in the same space at all. That guy used the space-time technique to separate the water bullet in the body. When the whirlpool dissipated, the green figure revealed his true face, and the Kazuki clan leader was shocked. Water. Mizukage-sama. The one who appeared in the study was the 4th generation Mizukage of the Hidden Mist Village, Yagura Karatachi. After looking around Yagura, Masamune Kazuki shook his head and said, "No, this is impossible. He must be fake." The 4th Mizukage in front of him had dull eyes and a listless spirit. He was completely different from the energetic young man in the past. Although the two did look very similar, his reason told him that Yagura, as a perfect Jinkriki, was one of the strongest men in the entire ninja world, and it was impossible for him to be manipulated like a toy. This guy who looked so much like Yagura must be a fake. Arfeli said proudly, "There are many ways to imitate a person's appearance, but chakra is not so easy to imitate, especially the tailed beast chakra." Then, he patted Yagura's shoulder lightly and whispered, "My good friend, show your strength to this new friend." As if he understood what he said, Yagura's dull eyes became more lively. Then, Masamune Kizuna saw the boy who looked very much like the 4th Hokage, with dots of red chakra flowing out of his body. I haven't given Chief Kizuna a name until here, and I found that he has quite a lot of roles, so I had to give him a name. I can't always call him Chief Kizuna. Chief Kizuna. To be honest, I'm quite satisfied with this name. Chapter 369 Cooperation, Part 2. The Power of the Tailed Beast. Masamune Hazumi exclaimed, and instinctively dodged with his teleportation, fleeing to the door. The red, violent chakra was obviously the chakra of the tailed beast, and at this time, he finally confirmed that the boy with the dull look in front of him was their 4th generation Mizukage, Yagura of Goji. "Don't be so nervous, his every move is under my control, there will be no danger." Afeli waved his hand and said to the Hazumi clan leader who was leaning against the door, ready to run away at any time, "How is it possible?" Masamune Hazumi was surprised. He stood at a distance and observed for a while, and seeing that Yagura did not intend to attack, he approached carefully. Seeing this, Afeni patted Yagura on the shoulder again and whispered in his ear, "Good friend, take back your power." Then, in the surprised eyes of Masamune Hazumi, the layer of red chakra on Yagura's body was slowly retracted into his body and completely disappeared. Seeing that the 4th Hokage, who used to be bad-tempered, was so obedient, he couldn't help asking, "What did you do to the 4th Hokage?" "Nothing." Afeni waved his hand nonchalantly and said, "I just cast a small illusion on him." After that, he activated the power of his right eye again, opened the vortex of the void, put his hand on Yagura's shoulder, and sucked him in an instant. "Illusion?" Hazumi Masamune was confused and murmured, "The 4th Hokage is a perfect Jinkriki, with the help of the 3 tails. How could illusions work on him?" At this moment, he noticed that under the eye socket of the one-eyed mask, the eye was glowing with a strange red light. Looking more closely, he found that it was a Sharingan. "Are you Uchiha Itachi?" Hazumi Masamune subconsciously avoided the sight of the eye and shouted a name. "The glorious Uchiha clan has been exterminated, and now there are only 2 people left. One is Uchiha Itachi, the murderer who massacred the clan. The other is his younger brother, Uchiha Sasuke, a child less than 10 years old. Judging from his figure, this person is most likely Uchiha Itachi, not Uchiha Sasuke. Moreover, the most important point is that among the enemies that the 4th Hokage went out of the village to chase today, there is the Itachi who destroyed the clan. Therefore, he determined that this person should be Uchiha Itachi. It is said that the Uchiha family Sharingan has the ability to control the tailed beasts. If Uchiha Itachi first used the Sharingan to control the 3-tailed beasts and then used illusion on the 4th Hokage, it is not impossible. "No, I'm not Uchiha Itachi." Afeni shook his head. "Then who are you?" Hazuki Masamune asked solemnly. "A dangerous guy who has a Sharingan and can use the Sharingan to control the tailed beasts. If he does not find out the other party's identity, he really can't rest assured." "Me?" Afeni pointed at himself and sighed. "I'm just a ghost of the past. You don't need to ask anymore. My identity means nothing to your Hazuki family." Seeing that the other party was unwilling to reveal it, Hazuki Masamune had no choice. Then, Afeni changed the subject and said, "Your 4th Mizukage is already under my control. It's just a small matter to have him abdicate to your Hazuki family or to restart the battle for Mizukage." Now, you should believe in my ability to help your clan obtain the position of Mizukage, right? Hazuki Masamune returned to his seat, always paying attention to avoiding the sight of the Sharingan, and slowly said, I have seen your ability. But what can you get from helping our Hazuki clan so hard? Don't tell me that you are just kind and bored. There is no free lunch in this world. As the head of a clan, his experience is also incomparable to ordinary people. The change of the position of Mizukage is not a small matter. It is a major event that can shake the entire Kirigakure. Moreover, if the Hazuki clan really gets the position of Mizukage, they can also use it to control most of the resources of Kirigakure, return to the peak, and restore the glory of the second generation. However, although their Ghost Light family got such a big pie, he could not see what the other party could get. He did not believe that the other party was really just kind and wanted nothing. You know, in this cannibalistic ninja world, there is no pure good person at all. He would rather believe that the Uchiha clan member in front of him had other plans, and they were big. Because the exchange of interests has always been equal, no one wants to suffer losses. The other party gave their Ghost Light family such a big benefit, so the plan would naturally not be too small. Under the mask, Afeni showed a smile and whispered, I help your Ghost Light family get the position of Mizukage. Of course I have my own plans. But don't worry, I won't make it too difficult for you. What do you want? The Ghost Light clan leader asked curiously. I want the three-tailed and six-tailed of the Hidden Mist village, as well as a few other people. In addition, you can help me, so that I can also feel the taste of being the shadow of a village. Afeni said playfully. Everyone is not a fool. If he does not come up with a reasonable reason, it will be difficult to gain the trust of the Ghost Light family. Therefore, he selectively revealed part of his purpose. The tailed beasts were one of his goals. Originally, he only came to the Hidden Mist village to cause trouble, but now the situation is good, so he is naturally happy to take the three-tailed and six-tailed beasts into his pocket. Prepare for future plans in advance. You have a big appetite. You directly want the two-tailed beasts in our village. Hearing his words, Hazuki Masamune was shocked. The other party's last two conditions were not a problem, only the first one was a bit difficult. The tailed beasts are strategic weapons of major forces, which can determine the situation at a critical moment, and are also the last trump card of major forces. The Hidden Mist village has two tailed beasts, so it doesn't matter if they give up one of them, especially now that the three-tailed has fallen into the control of the other party. Whether they agree or not, the result is the same. But if they are asked to give up the six-tailed in the village, it is really difficult. You know, when their Hazuki clan takes the position of Mizukage, they will also need weapons like tailed beasts to protect the Hidden Mist village. The three-tailed has been lost, and the six-tailed cannot be lost again. But if they don't agree, the other party will definitely not cooperate with their Hazuki clan. After thinking it over and over again, Hazuki Masamune sighed heavily and said helplessly, okay, I can promise you. As long as you help our Hazuki clan get the position of Mizukage, we will give you the Vulpix after the matter is done. It was just a blank check. He would give as much as the other party wanted. At present, the most important thing is to reach a consensus on cooperation between the two parties first, and wait until their Hazuki clan gets the position of Mizukage, and then reconsider everything. Although he could see that the other party was perfunctory, Afeni still nodded. Deal. His main purpose was to promote the cooperation between the two parties. As for the Vulpix, he would find a way himself. As long as the Hazuki clan was put on the grill called Mizukage, everything would be out of their control. After all, the Terumi clan and the Hashigaki clan were not made of clay. Chapter 370 Cooperation, Part 2. By the way, you said you wanted to experience what it's like to be a cage. What's going on here? Didn't you say that the position of Mizukage would be given to our Hazuki family? Recalling the other party's conditions, the Hazuki clan leader narrowed his eyes and asked again. I'm a lone man. Without your help and protection, even with Yagura in hand, I can't replace him. Afeni sat back in the chair and explained patiently, and the change of the position of Mizukage is not something that can be done overnight. You don't think that the Terumi clan and the Hashigaki clan will watch indifferently as your Hazuki family takes the position of Mizukage and controls the entire Kirigakure village? As he said that, he playfully glanced at the middle-aged man behind the desk, scaring the other party away in a hurry, not daring to look at him. That's right, that's right. The head of the Hazuki clan, who avoided the sight of the Sharingan, nodded repeatedly, thought for a while and said, we have to find a way to make them recognize that our Hazuki clan is in charge of the position of Mizukage. With the support of their two families, and relying on Manu's strength, the position of Mizukage should be a sure thing. Arfei shook his head and sarcastically said, your Hazuki clan wants to ascend to the position of Mizukage, and control the entire Kirigakure. Why should they recognize you? Or in other words, what kind of benefits do you need to offer in order for their two families to willingly submit to Hazuki? Give up the fight for the position of Mizukage? Even if the Hazuki clan can offer it, are you really willing to do it? After saying that, Arfei revealed a hint of mockery under his mask. Selfishness is human nature, especially when it comes to the struggle for interests of large families. If they want to exchange interests, to make the other two families recognize that the Hazuki clan is in charge of the position of Mizukage, they will have to pay an extremely expensive price. And this price will definitely be so high that the Hazuki clan cannot bear it. Therefore, Arfei was almost certain that the leader of the Ghostlight clan would never choose to exchange interests. Because, if the other party was reluctant, the Ghostlight clan would also be reluctant. In this way, the Ghostlight clan was destined to not compromise with the Terumi clan and the Hashigaki clan, and the contradiction between the two sides was buried. The division of the Hidden Mist village began from then on. At that time, if he instigated a little in the name of the Mizukage, the entire Hidden Mist village would be like a ignited barrel of explosives, directly blown to pieces. Just as Arfei expected, his words were like a sharp sword deeply inserted into the heart of the leader of the Ghostlight clan. The sentence, "Are you willing to give it up?" kept repeating in his heart, and he questioned himself. He thought that he could not pay enough to exchange for the support of the other two families. Unless the power of the Mizukage was divided, but their Ghostlight clan could get a complete power, why should they share it with others? Therefore, his reason chose to refuse. The power of the Mizukage can only be enjoyed by the Ghostlight clan. Then, he solemnly asked the one-eyed masked man, "What's your plan?" Arfei said calmly, "Tomorrow, I will hold a high-level meeting in the name of the Mizukage. Then, you, the Kazuki clan, can arrange people to enter the venue in advance, and when everyone is here, you can take the opportunity to take them down in one fell swoop. As long as we catch this group of key figures, the entire upper echelons of Kirigakure will be controlled by your Kizuki clan. In this way, you don't have to worry about the obstruction of the Terumi clan and the Hashigaki clan. Holding the Kirigakure high-level people hostage, this step seems to allow the Kizuki clan to clear the obstacles to the position of Mizukage, but in fact it also makes the Kizuki clan completely break with the other forces. If there is a slight mistake, the entire Kizuki clan will face the backlash of many forces. The head of the Kizuki clan, who is very clear about the interests involved, gritted his teeth and said, "Let me think about it first." "Think about it? It's okay, I have plenty of time." Arfei lay on his back in the chair, closed his eyes, and patiently waited for the other party's reply. He believed that the other party would definitely not refuse. After all, the position of Mizukage is within reach. After a long while, after weighing the pros and cons, the leader of the Hazuki clan finally made up his mind. He looked at the one-eyed mask across the desk and said seriously, "Okay, I agree with your plan. But you must promise me that you will not harm those people's lives." Hearing this, Arfei sat up straight and opened his eyes and said, "Of course, killing them will only cause riots among the major forces. By then, even if I control the Mizukage, no one will obey my orders. Neither you nor I can get what we want. Only if they are alive can we hold the major forces hostage and barely maintain the stability of the Hidden Mist village. Killing all the high-level officials is certainly refreshing, and can allow Arfei to avenge his past, but this does not mean that the major forces in the Hidden Mist village can be eliminated. Because, if the leader dies, another one can be chosen. In the end, it is just to make them temporarily confused, and sacrifice another Hazuki family. At the same time, because of this incident, no one will obey the orders of the Mizukage anymore, and Yagura in his hand will no longer have any use value, and become a decoration. Just like this, the loss of Kirigakure will not be too big, and there is no question of revenge, which is far from satisfying his heart full of hatred. Moreover, after controlling Yagura, his purpose is not just for revenge. He also wants to use Yagura as a lever to pry the major forces of Kirigakure, intensify the contradictions within Kirigakure, lead to the fighting of various forces, and finally completely destroy Kirigakure. As one of the 5 largest military forces in the ninja world, Kirigakure is undoubtedly a stumbling block to his future plans. If he can take this opportunity to completely destroy Kirigakure, it will undoubtedly be of great benefit to his plan. Therefore, he can't just take a momentary pleasure and wipe out the Kirigakure high-level officials. Only by holding hostages, temporarily stabilizing the forces of all parties, and ensuring the order of Kirigakure, can Yagura in his hand have room to play. If the table is overturned, and the rules of the game are completely destroyed, the title of Mizukage will be meaningless. Because Mizukage is a product of order. Hearing Afeni's answer, the head of the Ghostlight tribe finally breathed a sigh of relief. He was afraid that the other party would be ignorant of the limits and start killing people indiscriminately, causing the Ghostlight tribe to fall out with everyone. By then, even if the Ghostlight tribe was strong, it would not be possible to compete with the entire Kirigakure. Although the means of holding hostages also caused many adverse effects, they were just trying to force everyone to nod. As long as things were not done to the extreme, they still had room for easing with the various forces. Then, he asked Afei, when do you plan to let the 4th Hokage abdicate the position of Mizukage to us? If possible, I hope the sooner the better. Afei shook his head and sneered bluntly, you are still too anxious. Mizukage is just a title. What you want is nothing more than the benefits of the Mizukage power given to the Kidao family. And I'm only one person. Those things are useless to me. You don't have to worry that I will compete with you. Let me play for a while and experience the taste of being a cage, and then let Yagura abdicate to you after a while. You'd better take this opportunity to control the situation in the entire Kirigakure. Otherwise, even if Yagura abdicates to you, you will only get the position of Mizukage in name only. Killing can severely damage Kirigakure, but it cannot destroy Kirigakure. Chapter 371 Contract. Okay, let's stop here today. Afei stood up, stretched, yawned and said, I'm a lonely man, and there is very little I can do. The rest depends on your Hazuki clan's arrangements. See you tomorrow. As he said that, Afei waved his hand, mobilized his chakra to drive the right Manjaki Sharingan, and then a continuously expanding vortex of the void appeared in front of him. Under the solemn gaze of Hazuki Masamune, Afei was like a wisp of green smoke, sucked into the vortex at a speed visible to the naked eye, and then disappeared. In the end, even the vortex of the void disappeared, and the room returned to silence again, as if the man had never appeared just now. Hazuki Masamune breathed a sigh of relief. This kind of space-time technique that comes and goes without a trace is really terrible. After lying on the chair and waiting for a long time, he confirmed that Afei had really left just now, and then he opened the door and walked out, calling out at the door, "Come here." Then 2 guards from the Hazuki family appeared in front of him. "What do you want, sir?" the 2 men asked with their heads down. "Ask Manu to see me." After saying this coldly, Gui Dengzengzan returned to the study again. Not long after, with a cough, a pale young man walked into the study of the Gui Deng clan leader. "Father, it's so late. What do you want to see me for?" After closing the door, Gui Deng Manu asked in a low voice. "You." Gui Dengzengzan was about to say something, but suddenly he remembered the elusive Afei, so he had to shut his mouth and waved to his son, motioning him to come forward. Although he didn't understand why, Manu still walked over obediently. Then, Gui Dengzengzan lowered his voice and told him his plan. Manu couldn't help but frown secretly after hearing it. His father's plan was too bold. If he was not careful, the entire Gui Deng family would be completely destroyed. After his father finished the last sentence, Manu tried to persuade him, "Father, this time is too dangerous. Otherwise, we should." No. Knowing what his son was going to say, Kizuna Masamune shook his head and said firmly, "If we miss this opportunity, I'm afraid our Kizuna family will never have another chance." What's more, that person controls the 4th generation in his hands and has absolute initiative. If our Kizuna family disagrees, he can still find other people to cooperate with. By then, if other people get the position of Mizukage, wouldn't our Kizuna family miss the opportunity in vain? He finally waited for an opportunity to control the hidden mist village. How could he be willing to give it to others? But father, that person's identity is unknown, and he controls the 4th generation. I'm afraid he has ulterior motives. Our Kizuna family cooperating with him is tantamount to seeking the skin of a tiger. Manyu continued to persuade earnestly. Hearing this, a fierce look flashed in the eyes of Kizuna Masamune, and he said seriously, of course I know that he has bad intentions. Now, I'm just deliberately perfunctory to him, in order to control the hidden mist village. That's why I want you to do that thing immediately. After all, he is just one person, and some things are not so easy to do. We have to get ahead of him and do that thing, so that we can have bargaining chips to negotiate with him when the time comes. Then, he wrote small words on a piece of paper, and finally stuffed the paper into his son's hand. Remember, after you find that person, kill all irrelevant guys, and then transfer him immediately. Don't tell anyone. Even if I ask, you can't tell it, understand? Kizuna Masamune solemnly warned his son. Seeing that his father had made up his mind, Kizuna Manayu had no choice but to take a look at the note, write it down hastily, and then stuff it into his mouth and swallow it. Well, father, I'll go now. Manayu slowly retreated. Gui Dengzengzan waved his hand and said nothing more. On the other side, Qishuang followed the way he came and soon returned to the temple of the White Snake Immortal and handed over Zinya's reverse scale. The White Snake Immortal sat cross-legged on the stone bed, stretched his tail to the dragon-shaped stone sculpture behind him, and took a scroll from the mouth of the stone sculpture and placed it in front of Qishuang. It was not until then that Qishuang realized that the scroll, which looked inconspicuous, was 2 meters wide, and it was incomparable to the small scroll he often used. Previously, he did not notice it, because there was a distance between them, and the snake body of the White Snake Immortal was too large, which made the scroll look a little small. Then, the White Snake Immortal opened the scroll in front of him and slowly said, "This is the spiritual contract of my snake clan. Now, you have the qualifications to leave your name on it." Although the Great Immortal said it very sincerely, Qishuang felt a little awkward, no matter how he listened. It felt like someone was tricking him into a den of thieves. Helplessly, he could only focus on the scroll. As the scroll opened, a series of yellowed names and handprints appeared in Qishuang's eyes. At the end of the list on the scroll, there was a name that was very familiar to him, Orochimaru. "Okay, write your name in blood," the White Snake Immortal urged in a low voice, tapping the blank space on the scroll with his tail. "Oh." Qishuang responded, then put his index finger into his mouth and bit it, quickly wrote his name after Orochimaru, and soaked his palm with blood, and pressed a handprint on it. Seeing that the contract was signed, the White Snake Immortal nodded with satisfaction, put away the contract scroll, and put it back into the mouth of the carved dragon behind him. "By the way, Lord White Snake Immortal, I want to ask you one more thing." Qishuang raised his head and looked at the white phosphorus snake on the stone bed. "Say." The White Snake Immortal took a puff of cigarette leisurely and seemed to be in a good mood. With a free laborer in Longdi Cave, the lives of the immortals will be much more comfortable in the next few decades. Although he didn't know why, Qishuang didn't plan to investigate further, because at the moment, he had more important things to deal with. Then, he asked, "Master White Snake Immortal, this spiritual contract includes the entire snake clan. I wonder if I can summon the other 3 masters to help fight?" As he said that, he glanced at the 3 snake princesses beside the stone bed. He didn't have the courage, ability, or mind to fight the White Snake Immortal's idea, but the 3 snake princesses under the White Snake Immortal were very suitable summoning targets. If one could be summoned at a critical moment, it would definitely be of great help. The White Snake Immortal glanced at him, blew a smoke ring and said, "Summoning is no problem, but we immortals don't like to get involved in your human internal struggles. Therefore, the 3 of them will not easily take action." Hearing this, Qishuang couldn't help but feel a little disappointed. The plan to summon the 3 snake princesses to help fight fell through. Then, I should be able to summon the 3 adults to help with a little bit of help outside of the battle, right? He asked, pinching his index finger and pointing at the 3 snake princesses. Princess Tunjin thought for a moment, smiled and said, as long as we are not directly involved in the battle, we are still happy to help. But you should understand that there is no free lunch in the world. If you want to summon us to help, you have to pay enough. I have modified the introduction of this book. You can go and take a look. Maybe you will find something new. If there is no change, it should be that the background review has not been passed. Please be patient and wait. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 372 Choice. What's the price? Qishuang asked subconsciously. Live sacrifice. Tuan Jinji spat out 2 words coldly and then said, you pay 1 for each time, so we want 10. Remember, 10 for each person. As it said that, it stretched out its long snake tongue and licked the corner of its mouth. Although it is true that the 3 of them also eat people, they are immortals who transcend the mundane world after all, and their desire to eat people is far less than that of Wansh. It doesn't really matter whether there is food or not. What's important is that the rules cannot be broken. The face of the immortal cannot be lost. Therefore, it asked for 10 times the number of sacrifices as Wansh. Hearing this, Qishuang smiled bitterly and said, 3 adults, can you give less? 10 is a bit too much. He could find live sacrifices from the death row prisoners in the Kirigakure prison, but asking for 10 at a time would inevitably make him feel heavy pressure. Seeing him bargaining, the Ichigoshima princess next to him said impatiently, boy, who do you think we are? We are immortals, not fools like the 10,000 snakes. If it weren't for the fact that you are also an immortal, we would never agree to help. It's already very kind to take 10 sacrifices from you each time. Although they will not directly participate in the battle, it does not mean that they are useless. On the contrary, with their abilities, even if they do not directly participate in the battle, just assisting from the side, it is enough to affect any battle situation. They feel that they are losing a lot by only taking 10 sacrifices each time. Seeing the 3 snake princesses' firm attitude, Qishuang had no choice but to nod helplessly. Okay then. Fortunately, the main purpose of his summoning the 3 snake princesses, in addition to participating in the battle, has another important auxiliary purpose. That one purpose alone is enough to make up for the consumption of summoning the 3 snake princesses. As for the frontal battle, he can temporarily use the 10,000 snakes to make up the number. With the strength of the 10,000 snakes, it can also bring a lot of help. After exchanging a few pleasantries with the white snake immortal and asking about some techniques for using immortal arts, Qishuang and the 3 snake princesses left the hall. Without waiting for him to ask, Princess Suzu spoke first. In accordance with the order of the white snake immortal, we will teach you the immortal arts unique to Langdi Cave. Originally, immortal arts had no attribute classification, but after seeing how you humans use chakra, we also further divided the immortal arts. Therefore, the immortal arts of our Langdi Cave are roughly divided into 3 categories. One is physical arts, the second is illusion, and the third is energy arts. Which one do you want to learn? Hearing this, Qishuang was stunned for a moment. He had never heard of the energy art, but after thinking about it carefully, he realized that it should refer to ninjutsu, such as arts that manipulate energy changes. Then, he slowly said, I have no idea about illusions, so forget about this one. He had a hard time learning ordinary illusions, so forget about this enhanced version of immortal illusions. Physical skills are not my forte. It's a waste of time to practice them. This is not suitable for me. Qishuang shook his head and said, I'm best at ninjutsu, so I will learn energy skills. Seeing this, Princess Suzu nodded and continued, energy skills, as the name suggests, refers to the manipulation of natural energy to perform skills directly. However, because chakra has different attributes, energy skills have also derived various attributes. Which of the 7 attributes do you want to learn? Before he could answer, Xiangxin Shenji next to him added, just because we promised to teach you fairy skills doesn't mean we will give you everything. You can only choose 3. Do you understand? Hearing this, Qishuang opened his mouth in astonishment. He thought the 3 snake princesses would teach him everything they knew. After all this time, he was only allowed to learn 3. Does the levitation skill I mentioned before count? He asked cautiously. Of course it counts. Princess Ichikishima raised her lips and replied without hesitation. Floating technique is also a fairy technique. If you learn it, you will have to consume a quota. Well then. Qishuang nodded helplessly. Facing the power of the 3 snake princesses, he really had no right to bargain. Just like the 10,000 snakes faced his coercion, there was no other way except to agree. By the way, Princess Ichikishima seemed to remember something and said, floating technique is a technique that manipulates the airflow around the body to make the caster float in the air. It is very similar to wind escape. If you don't know wind escape, it will be very difficult to learn this fairy technique. Qishuang's eyes lit up when he heard it, and he said excitedly, don't worry, sir, I just happen to know wind escape. It doesn't matter whether he can learn other fairy techniques or not. What he wants most is this floating technique. Princess Satsuki saw this and nodded, saying, we have seen you use water escape technique before. Do you know other techniques besides water escape technique and wind escape technique? Then only ice escape technique is left. Qishuang shrugged and said helplessly. Hearing this, the 3 snake princesses all looked gloomy. Princess Ichikishima even snorted and said, I didn't ask you that. Ice escape technique belongs to the bloodline limit ninjutsu. If you want to learn ice attributed fairy techniques, we can't teach you. It was really embarrassing for them to be suddenly pointed out that they didn't know a type. Stopping the blue-haired little witch who was about to say more, Princess Satsuki said with a cold face, in that case, we will pick 2 more fairy techniques from the wind and water attributes to teach you. Qishuang raised her hand and said, wait a minute. Do you have any other requests? Princess Xiangxin, who had been silent, asked impatiently. Do the 3 adults know how to seal? Qishuang asked the 3 snake princesses tentatively. He didn't have much demand for either wind or water magic, especially offensive magic, as what he knew was enough. Qishuang would not be interested in magic unless it had a special purpose. Sealing magic? The 3 snake princesses looked at each other in surprise, wondering why he would choose a sealing magic. What kind of sealing magic do you want to learn? Tuan Jinji asked with a frown. Do you know transcription seal? Qishuang said carefully. Tuan Jinji shook her head and said, tell me about its function first. There are many kinds of sealing magic, each with its own uniqueness. It had never heard of transcription seal, so it could only find a similar one, based on Qishuang's description. Qishuang thought for a moment and said slowly, transfer seal is a trigger seal. It can seal another spell, and when external factors meet its triggering conditions, its seal will automatically open and release the previously sealed spell. After listening to his story, Tuan Jinji nodded and recalled, we really have such a similar seal type fairy spell in Longdi Cave, but I feel it is useless. Are you sure you want to learn it? Yes, I will learn this. Qishuang's tone was very firm. There has never been a useless or useless spell in the world. The key is how the caster uses it. And this spell similar to the transfer seal has an irreplaceable role for him. What about the other one? What have you decided to learn? Tuan Jinji continued to ask. Qishuang thought for a moment and tried. Can I keep this opportunity? I haven't thought of what I want to learn yet. Can I decide later? Hearing this, the 3 snake princesses looked at each other and then nodded without forcing him. Chapter 373, Shocking Change. Sealing techniques are more complicated. I will teach you levitation techniques first. You have the basics of wind escape, so it shouldn't be too difficult to learn this. Princess Suzu floated into the air and said to Nanashimo. Princess Ichikishima and Princess Tanishin disappeared quietly. They still prefer one-on-one teaching in turns. It is convenient and leisurely. Princess Suzuki floated in the air and continued. The so-called levitation technique is actually to manipulate the power of wind, exerting a levitation force on the practitioner, thereby achieving the effect of levitation. The wind escape technique you use already has the power to manipulate wind, but the self chakra is different from the natural energy in the air, and they will slowly dissipate in the air. Therefore, it is very difficult to achieve the effect of levitation by simply using wind escape technique. Hearing this, Nana Frost below continued, the natural energy in the air is endless, omnipresent, and can be replenished at any time. If we manipulate the wind, based on natural energy, we will have a never-ending levitation force. Am I right, sir? Princess Suzuki nodded in the air and whispered, yes, that's what I mean. Then, it began to explain in detail the various precautions of the levitation technique and guide Nana Frost to practice the levitation technique. On the other side, Medi Terumi continued her fusion experiment in the training ground. The difficulty of fusing the 3 chakras was far beyond her imagination. Although she had successfully integrated the boiling style and had conceived a plan to use water style as a bridge to connect earth style and fire style, she still encountered many difficulties when actually implementing it. To this day, after spending almost 3 years, she still has not seen any hope of success and always feels as if something is missing. At this moment, several ninjas from the Terumi clan hurried over. Several people knelt down with a plop, and the leading ninja shouted breathlessly, Terumi. Terumi Medi-sama, something bad is happening. What's the matter? Terumi Medi frowned and asked slightly displeased. When practicing, it is most taboo to be disturbed by others. However, looking at the appearance of these fellow clansmen, it does not seem like they are deliberately disturbing, and something really big has happened. The leading Terumi clan ninja cried and said, the Hazuki clan launched a coup and detained all the top leaders of Kirigakure and all the clan leaders who participated in the meeting today. What? Hearing this, Terumi Medi could no longer hold back and stood up from the ground. She grabbed the collar of the clan member, pulled him over, and asked loudly, say it again. Seeing the pretty girl suddenly angry, the man couldn't help but feel a little scared, but the situation was urgent, so he had to bite the bullet and say again, the Hazuki clan launched a coup, detained all the top leaders of Kirigakure and the clan leaders. Today, the Mizukage held a high-level meeting, which resulted in the entire Kirigakure high-level representatives being wiped out by the Hazuki clan. After the news was confirmed, Medi Terumi threw him to the ground and angrily cursed, where are the guards? Are all the guards dead? How could a mere Hazuki take down so many people? In addition to the heads of various departments, there were also patriarchs of major families at the high-level meeting of Kirigakure, with at least more than 30 people in total. Even if each person only brought 2 guards, the total number would be at least nearly 100. In addition, these guards were all top-level jonin. If the Hazuki family wanted to take down so many people at once, at least 200 to 300 people would have to be ambushed in advance. In Kirigakure, the armed mobilization of 200 to 300 people was not a trivial matter, and they had to be arranged in the meeting room, which would never be hidden from the intelligence network of the major families. If the Hazuki family had been found to have unusual movements in advance, today's meeting would definitely not have been held. Taking a step back, even if Hazuki had hidden it from everyone's intelligence network and set a trap, it would still be incredible to take down everyone at once. The Terumi ninja said with a sad face, the Hazuki family put drugs in the tea and food at the venue, and released hypnotic powder, which resulted in all the guards having no chance to resist. Drugs? Terumi Medi screamed, and then asked loudly, aren't the people at the venue arranged by the Mizukage? How did the Hazuki family have the opportunity to put drugs? The Terumi ninja looked at her timidly and whispered, because the coup of the Hazuki family this time was the intention of the 4th generation. It was the 4th generation and the Hazuki family who cooperated with each other to control everyone. What? Explosive news came one after another, and Terumi Medi was almost unable to keep up. What the hell is that little brat doing? She stomped her foot in anger. Although Yagura is about the same age as her, after becoming a Jinkriki, his body seems to have stopped developing, and has remained at the age of 13 or 14. Now, children of the same age have grown up, but Yagura is still a teenager, and even his temperament has not changed much. She was like a child who had never grown up. My lord, the clan leader has been detained, and the clan is leaderless and in chaos. Please go back and take charge of the situation. The leading Terumi clan ninja reminded loudly. Let's go. After calling out, Terumi Medi hurriedly took a few of her clansmen and hurried back to the Terumi clan's residence. As the heir to the clan leader, she must take on the responsibility at this critical moment. Although she is not the heir of this clan leader, in this cruel ninja world, the strong are always respected. Only the strong are qualified to lead the clan and will be recognized by the clan members. And it was because she successfully cultivated the boiling release and completed the feat of having 2 bloodline limits, showing extraordinary talent and outstanding combat power, that she was recognized by the clan members. If it were not for the fact that this clan leader had not yet abdicated and Terumi Medi was too young, everyone almost pushed her to the position of clan leader. Therefore, she was wrong to temporarily become the heir to the clan leader. By the way, how are those guards? Medi Terumi suddenly remembered her father, who was the chief's personal guard, and asked hurriedly. This. Several members of the Terumi tribe behind her looked at each other, wanting to say something but stopping. Medi Terumi, who noticed something was wrong, immediately stopped, turned around and shouted, "Speak." Everyone's eyes flickered, and they didn't dare to look at her. Seeing this, Medi Terumi suddenly felt a sense of foreboding. She picked up a person and asked again, "Speak. What happened to them?" The man couldn't help but tremble with fear, because he had never seen the beautiful Medi Terumi so angry. The rest of the people were so frightened that they were silent and didn't even dare to breathe, because they all knew that Medi Terumi's father was one of the chief's personal guards. Knowing that he couldn't escape, the man who was picked up said in tears, "Except for the representatives of various forces, the rest of the guards, all, were slaughtered." Chapter 374 Interrogation. Hearing this bad news, Medi Terumi's eyes went dark, and she weakly let go of the man's collar. Seeing her staggering, several of her fellow tribesmen hurried forward to support her and whispered to comfort her, "My lord, please accept my condolences. The tribe is still waiting for you to take charge of the overall situation." Hearing this, Medi Terumi bit her lips tightly, covered her dizzy head with one hand, pushed away several people beside her with the other hand, and called out in a hoarse voice, "Let's go." After that, she turned around with difficulty and took a slightly frivolous step. She wanted to find a place to cry, but she knew that she couldn't. At present, the Kizuna clan launched a coup and detained the clan leader. The people in the clan must be panicking. She needed to go back quickly to stabilize the overall situation and make corresponding arrangements to deal with the changes in the Hidden Mist village. On the other side, the Kizuna clan and Afeni joined forces to capture all the high-level officials and quickly sent them to prison. Of course, the prison guards have all been replaced by Kizuna's people. In order to prevent someone from robbing the prison, they also deployed heavy troops to guard the periphery of the prison. That was the direct affiliated troops of Kirigakure. Although the top leaders were in turmoil, the Mizukage was still there. With the help of Yagura, Afeni could easily mobilize the Kirigakure troops. Although the people below had complaints about the coup of the Hazuki family and did not understand what the Mizukage was thinking, after seeing the Mizukage personally come to give orders, they still obeyed the orders and guarded the Kirigakure prison. As long as the Mizukage was still in office for one day, and it was confirmed that it was the will of the Mizukage, they would not disobey the Mizukage's orders. As for the political struggles among the top leaders, they chose to ignore them. At the same time, after cleaning up many Kirigakure top leaders, Afeni no longer had to worry about the risk of being exposed, because the Hazuki clan, who were also allies, would not only not expose him, but would also try their best to cover for him. At least, they would not turn against the Hazuki clan before the Hazuki clan completely controlled the Kirigakure. As for the Kirigakure, he had already set the tone for the entire situation, and the rest depended on the performance of the Hazuki clan. No matter how the Hazuki clan plays games with other parties, as long as the Hazuki clan does not give up their desire for the position of Mizukage, the situation will develop in a worse and worse direction. The contradictions between the parties will slowly accumulate, just like a volcano that is brewing to erupt. The longer the time is delayed, the more terrifying the disaster of the volcanic eruption will be. He is looking forward to the ending, where the entire Kirigakure village will be torn apart and burned in the flames of war. Then, he found King, who was imprisoned in the different space. Looking at the masked man who was hypnotized by his illusion, he whispered, Tell me, what did you do with Lin's body after you brought it back? King, who had been controlled by the illusion, replied woodenly. After extracting the three-tailed beast and injecting it into Yagura's body, we threw her body away. Tell me quickly, where did you throw it? Afei asked anxiously. Blood Valley. King slowly uttered a place name and then added, originally thrown into the Blood Valley, but then Qishuang found her again. Hearing this, Afei couldn't help but feel nervous and hurriedly asked, Qishuang? Who is he, and why is he looking for Lin's body? He was my former team member. Back then, it was he who took back the Three Tails Jinchuriki from you. Under the effect of the illusion, King obediently revealed everything. Is it him? Hearing King mention the past, Afei couldn't help but recall that desperate past. If Black Zetsu hadn't come to his aid in time, he would have died that day. Why did he look for Lin's body? Afei continued to ask, and at the same time he had a vague guess in his heart. He said, to prevent you. King replied bluntly. Damn it. Hearing such an answer, Afei could no longer suppress his anger and punched the floating stone next to him fiercely, immediately smashing a small bowl-sized gap. Where is he? Afei roared at King loudly like an angry lion. Unfortunately, King had been hypnotized by his illusion and turned into a puppet-like guy. He would not have any conditioned reaction to his anger at all. He just shook his head woodenly and replied mechanically, many years ago, he went out to practice, and there has been no news since then. Even if I use the intelligence network of the Hidden Mist Village, I still can't find any news about him. I suspect he may have an accident and died outside. Ninjas certainly have power that ordinary people can't reach, but they also bear corresponding risks when they have this power, because they will face enemies who also master the power of chakra. Or they will be ambushed, or the assassination fails, or they will encounter disasters and finally lose their lives. Therefore, ninjas are not a comfortable profession, but a very high-risk profession. According to incomplete statistics, hundreds of ninjas die in the Hidden Mist Village every year. In addition, there are also some missing people. They are said to be missing, but in fact everyone understands that it is just that after death, the body cannot be found. Therefore, missing is equal to death in everyone's mind. What about Lin? Where did he hide Lin? Afei still roared loudly. He didn't care whether his former enemy was dead or alive. He just wanted to know where Lin was. As long as he could find Lin, he would not care about anything else. Then, in Afei's expectant eyes, King shook his head again and gave him a cruel answer. I don't know. I don't know where he put Noharalin's body. Maybe Ming knows. Afei, who was originally extremely depressed, had a glimmer of hope in his eyes again after hearing King's last sentence. He hurriedly grabbed King's shoulders and asked excitedly, who is Ming? Where is she? She. King's face flashed a struggle, as if he was instinctively resisting Afei's illusion, and didn't want to say anything more. Then, Afei's right eye became red again, and 3 black magatama slowly rotated around the pupil. After looking directly into King's left eye, infusing his pupil power, and strengthening the control of the illusion, he continued to ask, tell me, who is Ming? Where is she? As the control of the illusion strengthened, King's face regained calmness again, and he replied blankly, Ming was also my former team member, full name Terumi Mei. Now she is the heir to the position of head of the Terumi family. She has the best relationship with Nanashiro, and it was the two of them who found Nohararin's body together. Maybe, she knows where Nanashiro hid Nohararin's body. Hearing this, Afei let go of King's shoulder. A fierce look flashed in his eyes, and he murmured, Terumi Mei? Then, he concentrated his chakra in his right eye, and once again drove the power of the main Gekkai Sharingan, opened a void vortex, and then left his own space. Chapter 375, Peaceful Wind. On the other side, Terumi, who had quickly returned to the base, forced herself to cheer up and calmed down the chaotic Terumi clan. Pass the order. All clan members, except special intelligence personnel, return to the base and prepare for war. She hurriedly ordered the assistant next to her. The assistant nodded and disappeared like the wind. Although the Kazuki clan launched a coup and only temporarily detained the leaders of various forces, no one knew what they would do next. Terumi must prepare for the worst in case she was caught off guard by the Kazuki family. Thinking of this, she instructed another assistant, hurry up and send someone to keep an eye on the village entrance. Once you find that the guards have increased, or the entry and exit are restricted, report back immediately. Yes. The second assistant responded, and also disappeared in front of her. The current problem is not just the Kazuki family, but also a Mizukage with unknown purposes. The two sides joined forces to completely lock the various forces in the Hidden Mist village, and then devour them. However, this means that the Kazuki clan will completely break with all the big and small forces in the Hidden Mist village. Even with the help of the Mizukage, Kizuki is afraid that it is not enough to fight against so many forces at the same time. She doesn't believe that the Kazuki family has such courage. If they really have this determination, they will not choose to detain hostages, but directly massacre. But she has to be on guard, because once the Kizuki family chooses to turn against them, their Terumi clan is likely to bear the brunt. After all, the tree that stands out in the forest will be destroyed by the wind. Looking at the entire Hidden Mist village, apart from the Kazuki family, only their Terumi clan and the Hashigaki clan are the strongest. As long as they defeat these two families, the other small families will be nothing but a pile of loose sand, and will no longer pose any threat to them. Therefore, Terumi Mei must prepare for retreat, while preparing for defense. Once the war starts, it is hard to predict whether it will be good or bad. Then, she called another member of the same clan to her and solemnly instructed, send someone to contact our subordinate families immediately, and ask them to send someone to discuss the matter. Also, send someone to the Hashigaki clan, and ask them to send someone to discuss it. At this moment, a member of the Terumi clan hurriedly ran in from outside and said anxiously, report to Master Terumi Mei, there is an envoy from the Hashigaki clan asking to see you. Come so soon. Terumi Mei was a little surprised, pinching her chin, and muttering to herself, it seems that the head of the Hashigaki clan also thinks the same as me. Then, she called to the visitor, take him to the living room to wait, I will be there soon. Yes. The visitor hurried away again. After a while, Terumi Mei saw a strange man with blue skin and shark face in the living room. That was the Hashigaki clan of Kirigakure. In terms of strength, the Hashigaki clan is stronger than them, but because of the appearance of the Hashigaki clan, they are not likable. Therefore, the power of its affiliated families is much weaker than that of the Terumi clan. Hello. The envoy of the Hashigaki clan was about to salute and greet, but was immediately stopped by Terumi Mei. Don't say polite words. Time is urgent, let's talk business, she said impatiently. The envoy of the Hashigaki clan smiled awkwardly, and said, since Lady Terumi Mei is so straightforward, I won't beat around the bush. Our young clan leader said that the Hazuki clan has evil intentions, and with the help of the fourth Hokage, our two families need to cooperate sincerely and establish an offensive and defensive alliance in order to survive in Kirigakure. If we fight on our own, I'm afraid it won't be long before we are devoured by the Hazuki clan. Terumi Mei crossed her arms expressionlessly and said, I have no objection to cooperation, let's just do it. Also, let me tell your young clan leader that I'm going to gather armed forces from all sides and put pressure on the Mizukage and the Hazuki clan tomorrow to see what their plans are, and try to see if you can get them to release the hostages. If your Hashigaki clan is truly willing to cooperate, then please also gather your armed forces and put pressure on the Hazuki clan together. The Hashigaki clan's envoy nodded and said solemnly, I have taken note of your words, and I will definitely pass them on to the young clan leader. I believe the young clan leader will not reject your proposal. Excuse me, does your Lord Mei Terumi have anything else to say? As he spoke, he raised his head and looked at the pretty woman in the blue skirt. That's it for now. Keep in touch at any time, Mei Terumi said coldly, and her intention to send him away was very obvious. Hearing this, the Hashigaki clan's envoy bowed lightly, then quickly turned around and left, disappearing at the door. After sending the visitor away, Mei Terumi turned back to deal with the clan's chores and appease the subordinate families. The Hazuki clan also seemed to have suddenly become silent. After launching a coup and detaining many senior officials, there was no more action, as if they were waiting for something. This finally made Mei Terumi breathe a sigh of relief. She was not ready for a decisive battle with the Hazuki clan, and the Hazuki clan was the same. Although they detained many high-ranking officials of Kirigakure in one fell swoop, because Afei appeared too suddenly, and the time was too short, they had no time to prepare, and could only temporarily stabilize the situation. Prepare to slowly erode the other two families in the future. Moreover, the strength of the Kirigakure family can only be compared with one of them. If they go to war with both families at the same time, they will definitely lose. Fortunately, they dared to confront the other two families because of the Zili troops that Afei controlled in the name of the fourth generation. Although the Zili troops shrank a lot due to the coup, the number of Zili troops in Kirigakure is still considerable, and it is the most powerful among the four forces. However, because of Afei's impersonation, this force may backfire at any time. Once the fact that Afei manipulated the fourth generation is exposed to the public, the Mizukage will be in name only, and it will be impossible to mobilize the Kirigakure troops, and they may even turn against them immediately. Therefore, before the position of Mizukage is completely transferred to the hands of the Ghost Light family, and the Ghost Light family legitimately controls the power of Kirigakure, the Ghost Light family will not choose to turn against the other two families for the time being. They will only use the hostages in their hands as bargaining chips and the power of Mizukage in the hands of Afei to redistribute the interests of each family. If Kirigakure is compared to a big cake, then the power of Mizukage is the knife that cuts the cake. However, no matter how it is divided, this cake is so big. If the Ghost Light family wants to get more, they can only grab it from other people's plates. But the Terumi family and the Hashigaki family are naturally not happy. In this way, the hostages they have detained will have a use. They can negotiate and let each family cede their interests. This is also the reason why they did not kill the leaders of each party directly. Killing people is actually meaningless except for tearing faces with each party and bringing the date of the decisive battle closer. On the contrary, leaving these people behind can not only hold each party hostage, but also create conflicts between the parties. Because these leaders do not want to die, they will agree to the conditions of the Ghost Light family. Because these people did not die, the successors of various forces could not completely grasp the power smoothly. They could not let go of all their concerns and fight against the Gui Deng family. The Gui Deng family could use this opportunity to weaken the resistance forces and strengthen themselves, and then strike decisively at the right time to determine the overall situation. It's like boiling a frog in warm water, which can prevent the frog from jumping out of the pot and eat a pot of frog meat. Although it is a bit cruel and ruthless, since the Gui Deng family chose the coup, there is no turning back. They can only go all the way. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.